Chapter 405. Although Duan Xiong and Sovereign Yunfan suspected that the young man called Lin Feng in the bamboo hut was the legendary Principal Lin, this was only their own guess after all. Before they could confirm it, they could not be completely certain that Lin Feng was the Principal Lin. Even though there was a lot of evidence that proved it was very likely for this person to be the Principal Lin, they could only tell when they saw him in person. Duan Meng frowned. But I need to practice forging artifacts. With that, Sovereign Yunfan chuckled. If that's the case, then keep contacting him. Don't worry about us. Duan Meng thought about it, but there was nothing else she could do. All she could do was nod. All right then. I'll practice first. Before long, Duan Meng began practicing right before Duan Xiong and Sovereign Yunfan. Time passed slowly. The sun set and a crescent moon slowly climbed up the mountain. Within the bamboo hut, Lin Feng opened his eyes, and a gleam of light flashed through them. It's been over half a year. My body has grown quite a lot, and my mental strength has increased by a lot as well. However, I'm still quite lacking in terms of laws. Lin Feng was rather worried. He was getting closer and closer to the deadline of 3 years. He did not have a lot of time left. To be more precise, he only had 2 years left. If he could not fend off Mo Qiong and Madame Zhang within 2 years, then he and his family would be in great danger. As for the Earth-Sea cave dwelling, Lin Feng didn't dare to place all his hopes on it. Moreover, the Earth-Sea cave dwelling was an extremely dangerous place. If he wasn't strong enough and had bad luck, he might be killed the moment he entered. There wouldn't even be a need for Mo Qiong and Mother Zhang, the 2 primary Earth Saint Realm experts, to make a move. As he thought, Lin Feng suddenly squinted his eyes. There's someone here. After probing with his mental strength slightly, the appearances of 2 unfamiliar guests were imprinted in Lin Feng's head. Outside the bamboo hut, Sovereign Yunfan sensed someone probing him. A gleam of light immediately flashed through his eyes, and he looked towards the bamboo hut. Master, what's wrong? Duan Xiong was only a Class 9 Earth Warrior, so he failed to sense Lin Feng's probing at all. A smear of doubt appeared on Sovereign Yunfan's face, but he said nothing. He turned around and made his way towards the bamboo hut. He said gently, "Let's go." He's finished his seclusion. Duan Xiong quickly followed. Wait, teacher is still in seclusion. You can't go in. Although Duan Meng knew that these 2 people had extraordinary statuses and were powerful, as disciples of Lin Feng, he would never allow them to disturb Lin Feng. However, just as he finished speaking, the figure that was blocking the 2 of them moved aside again, and said, "Sorry, teacher said that you 2 can enter now." He had heard Lin Feng's sound transmission, so he did not continue to obstruct them. Duan Xiong and Sovereign Yunfan nodded. They made their way up the steps and entered the bamboo hut. As soon as they entered, they saw a young man sitting on a cushion in the center of the bamboo hut. He seemed to be in his late 20s, and he gave off a heavy presence as he stared at Duan Xiong and Sovereign Yunfan calmly. "Speak, what's the matter?" Lin Feng said quietly. To be honest, he felt a little uncomfortable being disturbed for no reason. Duan Xiong frowned. Although he had yet to confirm the young man's identity, even if he really was that Principal Lin, his teacher was no ordinary person. The young man actually sat there firmly without any intention of standing up. That was just far too rude of him. However, he was much more tolerant than the 2 Earth Warriors beside Guan Yong. Although he was slightly displeased, he did not show it. As soon as he saw the young man, Sovereign Yunfan began to doubt him. According to what he knew, Principal Lin possessed the battle prowess of a peak sovereign. Even if he was not a peak sovereign, he would not be any weaker than a late sovereign. However, the young man before him gave off the presence of an early sovereign, and he was quite a distance away from mid-sovereign. How could someone like that possess the battle prowess of a peak sovereign? How could he be the Principal Lin who commanded several dozen sovereigns? After a moment of hesitation, Sovereign Yunfan stared at Lin Feng and asked, "Are you Lin Feng?" He had already concluded that the young man was probably a fake. "That's right. I'm Lin Feng. Principal Lin of Qingfeng College?" Sovereign Yunfan continued to ask. Lin Feng glanced at Sovereign Yunfan in surprise, but he did not deny it. "If you're talking about Qingfeng College in the imperial capital of the Kingdom of Zhao, then I think you're right. I really am that Principal Lin." With that, Sovereign Yunfan's face turned cold. "How dare you?" Not only did that leave Lin Feng stunned, but even Duan Xiong was stunned. Duan Xiong said in a hurry, "Teacher." Sovereign Yunfan waved his hand to stop Duan Xiong from speaking. He continued to stare at Lin Feng. "Although I don't know where you got that three-striped mortal artifact from, nor do I know what strange method you used to condense such dense earth element in the back mountains, I'm certain that you're definitely not Principal Lin. That's because from what I know, Principal Lin once fended off 3 peak sovereigns by himself a year ago, and there were even 2 peak sovereigns among them. His strength was unfathomable. You, on the other hand, are only a primary sovereign, so how can you be Principal Lin? Do you really think you can defeat peak sovereigns with your cultivation as a primary sovereign?" He had thought that he had really encountered that Principal Lin, but he never expected it to be an impostor. He could not help but feel rather disappointed. Duan Xiong immediately returned to his senses when he heard that. His face turned cold as well, and his gaze towards Lin Feng was rather hostile. "You're not Principal Lin. Who are you?" There was something wrong with this person, who was using the name of Principal Lin to go around swindling people. "If I capture him and send him to Qingfeng College, and hand him over to the real Principal Lin." Sovereign Yunfan thought of a plan. "Perhaps Principal Lin will be happy and agree to forge a king artifact for me." When he thought up to there, his gaze towards Lin Feng became even colder as his lips curled into a sneer. Within the bamboo hut, a battle was about to erupt. Lin Feng was stunned. After being stunned for quite a while, he looked at the two of them, unsure whether to laugh or cry. "Don't you know that Principal Lin's cultivation is only that of a primary sovereign?" He had never thought that there would be a day when someone would actually suspect his identity. Was the name of Principal Lin really so resounding that someone would use it to go around swindling people? "Stop quibbling. You can't fool me. Also, don't tarnish the name of Principal Lin. What kind of existence is Principal Lin? How can you impersonate her?" Sovereign Yunfan was already certain that Lin Feng was lying, so he obviously did not believe Lin Feng's words. He stared straight at Lin Feng. "Speak. Who are you? Why are you impersonating Principal Lin? What are your intentions?" Lin Feng wanted to cry. He really did not think that something like this would happen to him. Someone actually suspected him of impersonating her. That was just too hilarious. Probably no one would believe him even if he told them. "I'm not lying. I'm Principal Lin." Lin Feng looked at Sovereign Yunfan helplessly. "If you have something to say, just say it. I still need to go into seclusion later." Hearing that, Sovereign Yunfan flew into a rage. Even at a time like this, the young man was still being stubborn. "All right, since you say you're Principal Lin, then fight me." Sovereign Yunfan stared at Lin Feng coldly. "Principal Lin once fended off 3 peak sovereigns by herself a year ago. If you're Principal Lin, you should be able to defeat me easily. As long as you defeat me, I'll admit that you're Principal Lin." Lin Feng glanced at Sovereign Yunfan and asked in doubt, "Who told you that Principal Lin once fended off 3 peak sovereigns by herself?" He did indeed possess that strength right now. Regular peak sovereigns were nothing to him, but a year ago, he could only fend off 1 peak sovereign at most. He was Lin Feng, so obviously no one knew that better than him. Duan Xiong looked at Lin Feng like he was looking at a monster. "What, did I say something wrong? You don't even know about Principal Lin's glorious feats, yet you're bold enough to impersonate her." Sovereign Yunfan had no idea how to evaluate Lin Feng. He had no idea how to react either. However, when he mentioned Principal Lin's glorious feats, his face became stern once more. A sliver of reverence appeared between his brows. A year ago, Principal Lin once fended off 3 peak sovereigns in Qingluan City. 2 of them were protectors under the Ice Dragon of the South Sea, while the other one was said to be a genius of the Mo clan. In the end, all 3 of them died to Principal Lin's hands. As he said that, a sliver of fanaticism actually appeared in his eyes. Principal Lin must have held quite a high place in his heart. Stop, 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 what nonsense are you spouting? Lin Feng truly understood this time. If he had to blame someone, he could only blame the others for spreading false information and misunderstanding him. Back then, he had almost been hunted down by the 2 protectors, fleeing all the way to Qingluan City. Although he had forged a 3-patterned Supreme King artifact and armor, he had almost been killed by the 2 protectors when they worked together. Moreover, the genius of the Mo clan had suddenly launched a sneak attack at a crucial moment, heavily injuring him to the brink of death. However, the genius of the Mo clan had not gotten away with it either. He had also launched a sneak attack, so they were even. However, the person who had killed the 3 of them was a junior Earth Saint, Black Rice, all right? It had nothing to do with him at all. Since when did he become the one who had killed them? You've misunderstood. I didn't kill them. Lin Feng disdained to take all the credit for himself. Although it would be a piece of cake for him to kill the 2 protectors and the genius of the Mo clan with his current strength, he had no interest in falsely claiming credit for something he didn't do. I know you didn't kill them, Sovereign Yunfan said nonchalantly. Lin Feng was stunned. Since when had Sovereign Yunfan become so smart all of a sudden? However, before he could say anything, Sovereign Yunfan added, because you're not Director Lin at all. That left Lin Feng completely speechless. As it turned out, Sovereign Yunfan had never believed him at all. Why is this guy so stubborn? Lin Feng could not help but sigh emotionally. Fine, there was nothing he could do. In order to prove his identity, it looked like he had to show off some of his skills today. He stood up slowly. Duan Xiong immediately looked at him cautiously, while Sovereign Yunfan frowned. What are you trying to do? Didn't you say you wanted me to have a fight with you? Lin Feng glanced at Sovereign Yunfan helplessly. As he said that, he made his way between Sovereign Yunfan and Duan Xiong, making his way out of the bamboo hut. Come. You'll know whether I'm Director Lin or not after we fight. He knew that if he did not show some evidence, this guy would not believe him even if he spoke until his mouth ran dry. Master. As soon as Duan Meng saw Lin Feng emerge, he immediately bowed. Yeah, you can go back for now. You can continue training tomorrow. Lin Feng waved his hand and said nonchalantly. All right, Master. Duan Meng immediately turned around, ready to leave. Sovereign Yunfan squinted his eyes. This kid really is stubborn. He'd rather fight with me than admit that he's pretending to be Director Lin. Duan Xiong said, Master, this person is bold enough to pretend to be Director Lin. We can't let him go so easily. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Sovereign Yunfan nodded. Seeing Lin Feng send Duan Meng away, Sovereign Yunfan suddenly said, Let's just let him stay and observe first. Since he's your disciple, do you have any secrets that you're hiding from him? He looked at Lin Feng as if he was smiling. He's only a 3rd-level Earth mage. A battle between us will probably have some negative effects on him. Lin Feng frowned. When he heard Lin Feng's words, Duan Meng's eager expression became slightly dejected. In reality, he wanted to stay as well. He also wanted to know just how powerful his master was. Sovereign Yunfan chuckled aloud. If that's what you're worried about, you don't have to. Perhaps you've underestimated his tenacity. If you don't believe me, you can ask him yourself if he wants to stay and watch. His gaze towards Duan Meng was filled with a sliver of admiration and fondness. This child really was rather different from regular children. Originally, he wanted to take Duan Meng as his disciple very much, even as his last disciple. However, when he remembered that this child was Director Lin's disciple, he could not help but give up on that thought. Now that he had proven that Lin Feng was not Director Lin, but an impostor, the thought took root in his head once again. It became even more firm, taking root deeply. As a result, his gaze towards Duan Meng became even friendlier. Lin Feng glanced at Duan Meng. Seeing how Duan Meng was just as Sovereign Yunfan had said, eager, he could not bring himself to dismiss Duan Meng for a moment. After a moment of thought, he said, "Whatever. Since you want to stay and watch, I'll allow you to stay for a while." With that, he slowly took to the air and said, "Come." Sovereign Yunfan took to the air with him very conscientiously. Although Lin Feng had not mentioned him by name, he was the only one who could defeat Lin Feng here. Although this kid is impersonating Director Lin, his talent really is rather terrifying. Sovereign Yunfan's face became slightly stern. He's become a sovereign in his 20s. Even if he's only an early sovereign, he's still a genius that hasn't appeared in countless years. He considered whether he should take Lin Feng as a disciple as well. If a genius like that became his disciple, it would definitely be something that would make him rejoice. Duan Xiong looked at Lin Feng and Sovereign Yunfan enviously. The ability to fly was a signature technique that only sovereigns possessed. Although he was a Class 9 Earth Warrior and had already reached the peak of cultivation, only a step away from becoming an early sovereign, who knew just how many years it would take for him to take that step? As a matter of fact, whether he could take that step in his entire life was still a question worth discussing. The lifespan of a Class 9 Earth Warrior was limited. If he did not break through before the end of his life, he would become a pile of dirt before long. Sovereigns! He clenched his fists before he knew it. To one side, Duan Meng stared blankly at Lin Feng and Sovereign Yunfan in the air. Although he had already become a Class 3 Earth Mage, he did not know much about Earth Warriors and Earth Mages, nor did he know just how powerful they were. However, what he saw today had a huge impact on him. As it turned out, people could also fly when they reached a certain level of cultivation, just like gods. The young man's heart was filled with shock. His tough heart had received an unprecedented blow. In the air, Lin Feng and Sovereign Yunfan paid no attention to the two people below. Since they were going to fight, they had to use their full strength. Even though Lin Feng was only a regular early sovereign in Sovereign Yunfan's eyes, he had gone through countless battles. He knew extremely well that he had to use his full strength against any enemy, or it was very likely for him to die from his own carelessness. Lin Feng looked at Sovereign Yunfan with interest. To be honest, with his current battle prowess, he did not take Sovereign Yunfan seriously at all. If Sovereign Yunfan was purely looking for trouble with Lin Feng definitely would not have shown any mercy. He would have no qualms about killing him in a single strike. However, since he held Principal Lin in such high esteem, it would not be good for him to beat him up too badly. He would probably just teach him a lesson. "Young man, I'll give you one last chance." Sovereign Yunfan looked at Lin Feng. He was brimming with confidence and high spirits. "As long as you're willing to admit that you're impersonating Principal Lin and tell me your intentions, I can promise to spare you." However, Lin Feng waved his hand. "There's no need. I've already said that I'm Lin Feng. I'll never change my name." Sovereign Yunfan's face sank. "I've already given you a chance. You're the one who doesn't cherish it, so don't blame me for what happens next." Sucking in a deep breath, he continued, "I am Sovereign Yunfan. Once you go to hell, don't forget who killed you." "If you can kill me, then go ahead," Lin Feng smiled. Sovereign Yunfan's eyes narrowed. He turned into a blur and suddenly sped up, charging towards Lin Feng. Boom! He threw a punch, and just when a sliver of a smile appeared on Sovereign Yunfan's face, it suddenly vanished. He frowned slightly. An afterimage. That's right. His punch, brimming with confidence, had actually missed. With a scan of his mental force, he immediately discovered Lin Feng's traces. He was diagonally above him. You've actually dodged my attack. Sovereign Yunfan looked at Lin Feng in surprise. Although he did not use laws and his attack had not reached its maximum power, it was still not something an early Supreme could dodge. Looks like you really do have some ability, but if you're bold enough to impersonate Principal Lin with just that, wouldn't you be laughing your head off? With that, Sovereign Yunfan called out gently, "Ha!" His already terrifying speed actually sped up even further. He had already used laws, but he did not fuse them into his attack. Instead, he fused them into his speed. Although he said he wanted to kill Lin Feng, he actually did not plan on actually killing Lin Feng. Perhaps it was because he cherished talent, or perhaps it was because he believed that Lin Feng did not deserve death, which was why he held back a little from the start. He was afraid that he would insta-kill Lin Feng with a single punch. Even so, the attack of a peak Supreme, even if it was just a casual punch, was extremely terrifying. However, to Sovereign Yunfan's surprise, his attack actually missed again. "Hee, you're far too slow." At the same time, a voice rang out from his left. Without even thinking about it, Sovereign Yunfan sent a kick flying. Boom! He still missed. There was a sonic boom in the air, but Lin Feng was nowhere to be seen. For some reason, Sovereign Yunfan began to feel a sliver of unease after his consecutive attacks had failed. Lin Feng's speed was actually so great. It had completely exceeded his expectations. Even when he used his maximum speed, he still failed to even touch the corner of Lin Feng's clothes. It was more than enough to demonstrate just how fast Lin Feng was. With such speed, Lin Feng was already undefeatable. Oh no! Sovereign Yunfan suddenly found the situation to be troublesome. Looks like I've been too arrogant. Below. Duan Xiong looked at Sovereign Yunfan in confusion, who had suddenly stopped attacking. He could vaguely tell that something was off. On the other hand, the young man beside him was overjoyed. He said happily, "Amazing! Teacher is amazing!" All he saw was Sovereign Yunfan failing to do anything to his teacher after several consecutive attacks, so he immediately guessed that his teacher was just too powerful, toying with this powerful, mysterious old man in the palm of his hand. "Why aren't you continuing?" Lin Feng's smiling voice rang out from right in front of Sovereign Yunfan. Hearing the teasing voice, Sovereign Yunfan felt like he had been played. He immediately became extremely furious and said furiously, "Are you bold enough to take a punch from me directly? Why wouldn't I be?" As soon as Lin Feng finished speaking, Sovereign Yunfan threw a punch. He had raised his speed to the limit. Seeing how Lin Feng really did not dodge, he beamed. Boom! This time, his attack connected. Sovereign Yunfan knew that Lin Feng really had kept his promise and did not dodge. However, as soon as his smile crept up on his face, it froze again. As if he had seen a ghost, he was extremely shocked. Why aren't you injured?" A beginner Supreme had taken a punch from him and was actually unscathed. He did not even tremble at all. This was just too unbelievable. Let alone beginner Supreme, even advanced Supreme Sovereigns would not dare to take a punch from him so casually, right? "Who are you?" A smear of shock appeared on Sovereign Yunfan's face. Why, you really are." A crazy thought appeared in his head. He vaguely guessed that this Lin Feng really was that legendary Principal Lin. Although Lin Feng was only a beginner Supreme, judging from Lin Feng's performance earlier, his battle prowess had probably already reached the limit of a Supreme. It was not impossible for him to take on 3 peak Supreme Sovereigns. In other words, the real Lin Feng had always been right in front of him. He was the one who had made a mistake. This joke has gone too far. He felt like crying. Wasn't this a little too dramatic? When he heard that Lin Feng wanted him to take a punch as well, his expression changed drastically. However, Lin Feng did not wait for him to finish at all. He said with a smile, "I took a punch from you earlier. This time, it's your turn to take a punch from me." Hearing this, Sovereign Yunfan's expression changed drastically. Was Principal Lin's punch that easy to take? However, Lin Feng did not give him a chance to refuse. With a flash, a sonic boom came from the front. A punch came instantly. It was so fast that Sovereign Yunfan could barely see it. Even if he was 3 times faster, there was no way he could dodge it. P.S. Please note, this chapter is a 6,000-word chapter, which means that 2 chapters have been merged together. Don't think that I only updated 1 chapter. Chapter 406. No! Below, Duan Xiong cried out as his eyes widened in fury. If he still could not guess Lin Feng's true identity by now, then he really would be an idiot. To be able to dodge all of his teacher's attacks so easily, and to launch an attack on his teacher that left his teacher with no way to dodge, this kind of strength could only be possessed by a peak sovereign expert. Such an expert would disdain to lie, and would not be interested in impersonating someone. Therefore, this Lin Feng must be the real Lin Feng, the world-renowned Dean Lin. It was possible to imagine how terrifying Headmaster Lin's punch would be even if it was just a casual punch. If Lin Feng really did land a hit, then Sovereign Yunfan would probably be crippled. Sovereign Yunfan stared at the fist that was rapidly expanding, but to his horror, he discovered that he was unable to dodge. Lin Feng was just too fast, like a streak of light. Even when he increased his speed to the limit, he only managed to move half an inch before the fist arrived before him. His forehead immediately became covered with cold sweat. Sovereign Yunfan's eyes widened as a sliver of deep regret and despair flashed through his eyes. Boom! As expected, Sovereign Yunfan was struck, directly flying several hundred meters away. His clothes were in tatters and his hair was a mess. A lot of blood oozed from the surface of his body. He was actually unable to put up any resistance at all from the punch. No! He thought he was dead, but in reality, he was still alive. He opened his eyes and clenched his teeth in pain. However, he forcefully suppressed the pain and looked at Lin Feng in doubt. Is his attack only this powerful? Although this punch caused him to suffer heavy injuries, it was far from reaching the point where his life was in danger. The attack of a peak exalt definitely would not be so weak. Just when he was about to say something, he suddenly shivered, as he caught sight of the faint smile on Lin Feng's lips. He immediately thought of something: laws. He didn't use any laws. He finally understood why the power of Lin Feng's punch was much weaker than he had imagined, and why it had only injured him slightly. It turned out that Lin Feng had not used any laws. Sovereign Yunfan's face reddened when he realized that. He immediately covered himself with a layer of origin energy, forming a set of dirt-yellow clothes. Afterwards, he flew towards Lin Feng. Before he even arrived before Lin Feng, Sovereign Yunfan bowed politely. "Thank you for your mercy, Principal Lin." If he still didn't know that Lin Feng was being merciful, then he should buy a piece of tofu and kill himself. Originally, he had some doubts about Lin Feng's strength. But now, after a real battle, he was completely sure that Lin Feng's strength was really so terrifying. Dean Lin's solo battle with 3 extreme supremes was definitely not a rumor. The more he thought about the battle just now, the more he thought about Lin Feng's simple punch, the more his heart palpitated. A simple punch that did not contain any laws had already beaten him, a high-level supreme being, into such a state. If he had used the laws, the power would be unimaginable. Moreover, the speed that Lin Feng had displayed might not have been his limit. After all, he was only a peak supremacy. It was not worth Lin Feng using his full strength. Principal Lin. The more Sovereign Yunfan thought about it, the more fearful and shocked he became. Yun Fan had no intentions of offending Principal Lin. I have misunderstood your identity. Please forgive me, Principal Lin. Duan Xiong looked at the two of them in the sky with a bitter smile. They actually suspected that Principal Lin was not Principal Lin. If word of this got out, the world would probably laugh their heads off. If I hadn't forgiven you, I would have killed you with a single punch earlier. Lin Feng shook his head before flying back to the ground. Duan Meng looked at Lin Feng with great admiration. His eyes burned with passion. Although he knew his master was very powerful, he never thought his master would be this powerful. He gained a direct impression of Lin Feng's strength. Although there was no comparison, there probably were not a lot of people in the world who could unleash such a terrifying attack. Alright, you've seen enough. Why don't you go back and rest? Lin Feng acted like he had done nothing at all. He patted Duan Meng's shoulder in a very relaxed manner. Duan Meng replied politely, Yes, master. Only after Duan Meng left did Lin Feng return to the bamboo hut. Sovereign Yun Fan and Duan Xiong immediately made their way over, but they were afraid to go any further when they reached the entrance. Instead, they stood guard at the entrance with their heads lowered, like children who had done something wrong. Lin Feng had no idea how to react when he saw how they were behaving. He said, Tell me, why have you come looking for me? He did not believe that the two of them had come just for sightseeing. Principal Lin, about what happened earlier. Since you've already said that what happened earlier was a misunderstanding, let's not talk about it anymore. Let's get down to business. I don't have a lot of time. With that, Sovereign Yun Fan bowed politely. I accidentally learnt of Principal Lin's whereabouts from Tai Chin, the shopkeeper of the Tai family's smithy in the Luoshan province. As a result, I've come with my disciple, Duan Xiong. I hope that Principal Lin can let bygones be bygones and assist us. Lin Feng said helplessly, You're still not getting to the point. Hurry up, I really don't have time to chat with you. He had already become rather impatient. Sovereign Yun Fan shivered inside before saying even more politely, I want to ask Principal Lin to forge a king artifact for me. He was more interested in a king armor, but a king armor was much more valuable than a king artifact, so he was not bold enough to ask for it, or others would say that he was greedy. In particular, he had offended Lin Feng unintentionally earlier, so he was even more embarrassed to ask for the king armor. So you've come for a king artifact. A sliver of understanding appeared on Lin Feng's face. However, he would not forge a king artifact for someone so easily. Not to mention, this guy had just offended him, so it was even less likely that he would agree to it so easily. As a result, Lin Feng bluntly turned him down without any surprise. Sorry, it's best if you find someone else to help you. I don't have the time. Not having the time was just an excuse. In other words, he did not want to do it. But Sovereign Yun Fan was dumbfounded. He felt like he had shot himself in the foot. The world was vast, and there were countless artificers. Although there were few 6-star artificers, they were not difficult to find. However, aside from the legendary Principal Lin, there were probably not many people who were confident in forging a Supreme King artifact. Even a top-notch 6-star artificer like Yun Fei probably would not have much confidence in doing so, right? Sovereign Yun Fan was filled with regret. He said in a hurry, Principal Lin, please assist me. I'm willing to pay the price. Duan Xiong also tried to persuade him from the side. Principal Lin, no matter what the conditions are, as long as you say it, we'll do everything we can to satisfy your request. The two of them panicked. Although Principal Lin had said that she did not care about what they had done earlier, she had directly refused to forge a king artifact for Sovereign Yun Fan. She probably still had a knot in her heart, so they needed to do everything they could to eliminate Principal Lin's dissatisfaction with them. Otherwise, who knew when Principal Lin would become displeased and condemn them? With her strength, they would not be able to resist at all. I didn't do anything to you, so why are you so afraid? Lin Feng looked at the two of them curiously. Sovereign Yun Fan could not help but smile bitterly. Although Lin Feng had not done anything to them for now, he was afraid that Lin Feng would cause trouble for them in the future. However, they could not say that out loud, because if they did, it would mean that they thought Principal Lin was narrow-minded. As a result, the two of them stammered, unable to explain themselves even after quite some time. Fortunately, Lin Feng did not continue to dwell on the matter. Instead, he waved his hand. I really don't have the time. You should leave. Sovereign Yun Fan felt like he had been struck by lightning. His face was extremely pale as he asked softly, Do we really have no chance at all? Sucking in a deep breath and seeing how Lin Feng had already made up his mind, Sovereign Yun Fan could only turn around with a bitter smile. As if he had aged several decades in a single moment, he forced out a smile. Sorry, Principal Lin. I've disturbed you. With that, he was about to leave with Duan Xiong. However, as soon as the two of them descended the steps, Lin Feng's voice suddenly rang out again, Hold on. Although it was only a single word, it was like the sound of nature to the master and disciple of the Yunfan sect. Sovereign Yun Fan forcefully suppressed his excitement and immediately made his way up the step. Arriving in front of the bamboo hut, he said, May I ask what other orders do you have, Principal Lin? Duan Xiong lowered his head, afraid to interrupt. It's not completely impossible for me to forge a king artifact. Lin Feng said after some thought, As long as you agree to a condition of mine, I can consider forging a king artifact for you. Sovereign Yun Fan was immediately overjoyed. He asked, What condition? Lin Feng said, The next Youth Masters tournament is almost here. I just happen to have a new disciple who wants to take part in it, but my time is limited, so I can't stay by his side and watch over him. As a result, I'm missing a bodyguard, which means I need someone to specifically protect him. If you agree to go with him and bring him back safely, I can agree to help you. I agree. Sovereign Yun Fan said without even thinking about it. You're not going to consider it? Lin Feng was surprised. After all, the Youth Masters tournament would take place over a rather long period of time. There would be a preliminary round, a promotion round, a final, and a grand final. Every single stage would take up quite a lot of time, and he would have to travel to many places. It was quite troublesome. However, he had forgotten something. Perhaps to him, it was a very long period of time, but to other sovereigns, half a year or even a year was like a nap. It was nothing worth mentioning. There's no need to consider it. Don't worry, Principal Lin. I'll definitely do my best to protect your disciple. Sovereign Yun Fan said extremely seriously. As long as I'm alive, I won't let anyone harm him. Lin Feng nodded, All right then. I'll take action as soon as the Youth Masters tournament is over. Is there a problem? Sovereign Yun Fan shuddered. No problem. Of course there's no problem. Even if there was a problem, he had to say there was no problem, not to mention that he really was fine. Chapter 407. There's less than a year until the Youth Masters tournament. You can go wherever you want during this time. I won't restrict your freedom, but before the preliminaries of the Youth Masters tournament begin, you have to come and escort Duan Meng. Lin Feng said, I need to remind you that since you've agreed, you can't be careless. If anything happens to my disciple along the way, you know what the consequences will be. Sovereign Yun Fan's heart immediately shivered. He said, I will do my best to ensure your disciple's safety. If anything happens to him, I'm willing to offer my head. All right. Lin Feng was finally satisfied. A while later, seeing how the two of them were still around, Lin Feng asked in doubt, You're still not leaving? He did not remember asking them to stay, right? Sovereign Yun Fan said awkwardly, Principal Lin, can the two of us stay here for a while? Lin Feng was immediately confused. He asked why. Well, Sovereign Yun Fan had no idea how to answer. After stammering for quite a while, he finally told the truth. The elements of the earth in the back mountains are extremely dense. It's very suitable for cultivation, and the environment is quiet. The temperature is just right. Before he could finish, Lin Feng had already understood what he meant. He smiled. Sure, you can stay wherever you want. I have no objections. Thank you, Principal Lin. Sovereign Yun Fan and Duan Xiong bowed together and said excitedly. From that day onwards, 2 more people appeared in the back mountains of the Duan clan. One of them was the patriarch of the Duan clan, a powerful figure who could shake up the entire Luoshan province with just a flick of his foot. The other person was even more impressive. He was the patriarch's teacher, a powerful late-stage sovereign. As soon as the sun rose, Duan Meng returned to the back mountains early. Grandpa, uncle, why haven't you left yet? Duan Meng asked out of curiosity. Sovereign Yun Fan opened his eyes and looked at the young man who slowly made his way over. His eyes were filled with affection. He was very fond of the young man. He smiled from ear to ear. We're not leaving. From today onwards, we'll stay here with you as well, all right? The young man was surprised. He asked, Has my teacher agreed? Don't worry, your teacher has already agreed. Otherwise, I wouldn't dare to stay. Supreme Yun Fan chuckled. Oh, that's good. The young man nodded and then said, But I don't have time to accompany you. I have to practice. Practice what? Cultivating spells and practicing refining techniques, Yi Zichen said. It's okay. You can practice. We won't disturb you. Then, the youth thought for a moment and nodded. All right, I'm going to practice. With that, the youth sat cross-legged on the ground and began to cultivate. Not long after, the young man was completely immersed in his cultivation, and his mental power slowly increased bit by bit. Needless to say, while it seemed like his mental power was increasing very slowly, it was actually frighteningly fast. If news of this were to spread, it would probably scare countless people. Duan Xiong looked at the young man thoughtfully. He felt that the young man had a familiar aura, but he couldn't be sure. Time passed by slowly. After cultivating for 2 hours, the young man stood up and began to practice refining. Ding ding ding. The crisp sound constantly rang out, but to Supreme Yun Fan and Duan Xiong, the sound was indeed extremely pleasant. It did not feel like it was noisy at all. I'm finally close to being able to make 0 mistakes. Before long, the young man stopped. Several weapons had already appeared beside him. Supreme Yun Fan and Duan Xiong had already become dumbfounded. They had witnessed the young man begin refining with their own eyes. Afterwards, he forged one weapon after another in an extremely short amount of time. He was so fast that it was simply shocking. They were certain that even if a 6-star artificer came, they would not be able to forge a weapon as fast as this child. Moreover, the violent beauty of the storm when the child was refining seemed to be a form of enjoyment, a form of art. Looking at the young man seated in the bamboo hut with his eyes closed, the two of them became even more shocked by the young man's ability to refine artifacts. No wonder he could become the greatest artificer in the world. No wonder he could forge king artifacts and king armors so easily. His technique was truly extraordinary. Even his disciple is so impressive. If he personally takes action. They became more and more excited inside. Duan Meng stopped what he was doing and sat down. However, he did not rest. Instead, he began cultivating while he was resting, as if he did not want to waste any time at all. Supreme Yun Fan and Duan Xiong looked at each other. They felt more and more touched inside. Whether it was Principal Lin as a teacher or Duan Meng as a disciple, both of them had greatly impacted the two of them. Around a month later, Duan Meng finally broke through to the level of a Class 4 Earth Wizard. At the same time, he also practiced the 1070 techniques of 1000 casting to perfection. He could use any one of them as he pleased. On this day, Lin Feng roused from seclusion and began to teach him the myriad casting technique. Your spiritual force has increased by a tier, so your control over techniques has become easier. It'll be much easier for you to practice the myriad casting technique. Half a month ago, Duan Meng had already reached the requirement to learn the myriad casting technique. However, his spiritual force had yet to break through to the level of a Class 4 Earth wizard back then, so practicing the myriad casting technique was rather strenuous. It was better for him to continue practicing the 1,000 casting technique and the 100 casting technique and continue building his foundation, making it even more solid. And, since he possessed terrifying talent for cultivation, his learning method was obviously different from Fu Yi and the others. As a result, Lin Feng waited until he broke through before teaching him the myriad casting technique. That way, he could achieve twice the result with half the effort, and he would not waste any time. Duan Meng listened quietly. After spending so much time with Lin Feng, he understood Lin Feng's habit. Lin Feng did not like being interrupted when he was talking. If he had any questions, he could wait for Lin Feng to finish before asking them one by one. Lin Feng would also answer them one by one. However, he could not casually interrupt Lin Feng while he was talking. Duan Meng was like a sponge. He had no limits, slowly absorbing nutrients and constantly growing. He lived a very fulfilling life. Time constantly passed as well. Winter passed and spring came. Day after day passed as Duan Meng constantly studied. During this time, Sovereign Yun Fan and Duan Xiong accidentally learned of Duan Meng's identity. When he learned that Duan Meng was actually a member of the Duan clan of Qinshui, Duan Xiong ravished with joy. However, when he learned that Duan Meng had been humiliated in his youth, he was so furious that he wanted to kill someone. A once-in-a-thousand-years genius had almost died, and it was all because of a member of the Duan clan. He could not help but curse all the people of the Duan clan of Qinshui. Even after cursing them, he was still not satisfied. He even taught the Grand Elder, who had crippled his cultivation, a lesson again. He punished all the other clansmen who had bullied Duan Meng in the past one by one. Only then did he calm down. He was filled with lingering fear. If it were not for Lin Feng's appearance, his Duan clan probably would have been cut off from this genius. I never thought this child would actually be a member of your Duan clan. Sovereign Yun Fan looked at the disciple he had personally nurtured enviously. Your Duan clan sure is lucky. Duan Xiong did not refute him. He only smiled foolishly to one side. If anyone knew that a genius like this had been born in their clan, they would probably be so happy that they would not be able to sleep for 3 days straight. Although there had been some misunderstandings in the past, the blood in his body could not fool anyone. As long as the Duan clan was in trouble one day, this genius would definitely not just stand by and watch. Within the bamboo hut, Lin Feng remained seated on the cushion. His consciousness was in Space One, constantly deducing and comprehending. His body had grown once again from its original foundation. He showed signs of breaking through to advanced exalt. In terms of laws, although his comprehension of laws had not increased, he had some ideas about fusing the 4 laws. However, he had no idea just how long it would take for him to fuse the 4 laws and comprehend a law technique even more terrifying than Heaven's wrath. Perhaps it would only take a year, perhaps it would take 10 years, perhaps it would take a century. Finally, the new Youth Masters tournament was about to begin. Duan Meng's cultivation was firmly at the peak of Class 4 Earth Wizard. He had already grasped all of the 10,700 combinations of 10,000 casting technique. Whether it was 100 casting, 1,000 casting, or 10,000 casting, Duan Meng had an extremely firm grasp of them all. However, he had no idea how to fuse them for now. Lin Feng could teach him other things, but Lin Feng could only explain the fusion techniques to him. Whether or not he could comprehend the so-called mysteries of the earth would depend on Duan Meng's luck. Right now, Duan Meng could be considered a standard Class 4 artificer. In other words, he was a beginner class 4 artificer. If he could fuse the 100 casting technique, he would advance to intermediate class. If he fused the 1000 casting technique, he would advance to advanced class. If he fused the 10,000 casting technique, he would advance to 5-star artificer. However, he had already been a beginner class 4 artificer for over a month, yet he still showed no signs of comprehending the fusion technique. Duan Meng. On this day, Lin Feng walked out of the bamboo hut and instructed him on some matters. With your current artificing ability, it shouldn't be a problem for you to pass the preliminaries and the promotion rounds. Even the finals shouldn't be a problem for you. However, there are many talented people in the world, and there are countless strange people. It's still not certain whether or not you can become the champion. Lin Feng stared at Duan Meng and said slowly, I hope you can maintain a calm heart. Don't compete for the sake of the competition. Instead, treat it as an experience to accumulate experience. Remember, you are only 18 years old. Before you turn 30, you still have 2 more chances to participate in the Youth Masters tournament. If you can't become the champion this time, you can become the champion next time. Don't be calculative. Yes, Master. Duan Meng bowed deeply. This disciple will remember. Lin Feng nodded, then looked at Yun Fan. Don't worry, Principal Lin. I will ensure Duan Meng's safety. Yun Fan immediately stood up and said respectfully. A moment later, Yun Fan, Duan Xiong, and Duan Meng each carried a bag as they slowly walked down from the back mountain. Duan Meng only stopped when they reached the entrance of Qingshui town. This is it. This is where I met Master for the first time. A smile slowly crept onto his face. He turned around and glanced at the blurry silhouette of the back mountain. He could not help but clench his fists tightly. Master, this disciple doesn't care about becoming the champion, but this disciple can't embarrass you. Therefore, this disciple will definitely take back the champion. They did not see that Lin Feng's gaze pierced through the forest and landed on them from afar at the entrance of the bamboo hut in the back mountain. He remained silent. Go. Pursue your dreams. After a long while, Lin Feng murmured softly, then turned around and walked into the bamboo hut. Chapter 408. The preliminaries of the Young Masters tournament were held in different places. Normally, only the local blacksmiths could sign up. Duan Meng was originally from Yang County, and his identity was registered in Yang County, so it was easy for him to sign up. The 3 of them kept a low profile. They found a restaurant close to a blacksmith shop and rented 3 rooms. Before the tournament started, they would practice there. Learning was like sailing against the current. If you didn't move forward, you would fall behind. It was the same for blacksmithing. If you didn't practice often, you would become rusty. Of course, if one's cultivation had reached an extremely high level and his spiritual energy was extremely powerful, his memory would be even more profound. As such, there was no need to constantly practice. However, it was best to practice every once in a while. This was the best way. For 3 days, Duan Meng practiced in a small blacksmith shop. As for the weapons he made, he gave them to the shopkeeper of the shop. He didn't lack money at all. He gave half of the soul stones he got from selling the weapons to Tai Chen to the old man and his wife in Qingshui town, and kept the other half for backup. That was 600 soul stones and 6 million essence stones. Even if he consumed materials quickly, the essence stones were enough for him to use for a few years, or even a decade or 2. Moreover, even if he didn't have the essence stones, Yun Fan Supreme and Duan Xiong would help him. As the number 1 family in Luoshan City, the Duan family's wealth was terrifying. On the other hand, Yun Fan Supreme's strength was terrifying, but his wealth was not as good as the Duan family's. However, the materials he collected were far more than the Duan family. There weren't many geniuses in the preliminaries of the Young Masters tournament in Yang County. They could be described as seeded contestants. As a county that had always been at the bottom of the Young Masters tournament in Luoshan City, Yang County had not achieved much in 5 consecutive tournaments. The last time a genius from Yang County had achieved the top 4 in the Young Masters tournament in Luoshan City was 25 years ago, and that genius was Guan Yong, whom Lin Feng had met twice before. 3 days later, the preliminaries of Yang County's Young Masters tournament finally started. County Governor's Mansion. On this day, all the important figures of Yang County were gathered here. The 2 4-star blacksmiths, the county magistrate, and the president and vice president of the Craftsmen's Guild were sitting together, discussing something. Their eyes were looking at the records on the register, looking expectant and worried at the same time. They didn't notice that a person was slowly walking over from afar. When the competition was about to start, the county magistrate suddenly realized that there was someone who looked very familiar. He took a closer look and quickly stood up. He cupped his hands and said to a middle-aged man, "Welcome to the Yang County Master Youth Tournament, Mr. Guan Yong. A warm welcome." His tone sounded a little surprised and pleasantly surprised. "That's right, Guan Yong." It was Guan Yong, a 5-star refiner whom Lin Feng had met twice. Guan Yong's arrival undoubtedly made the county magistrate and the others feel extremely comfortable. The 2 presidents of the Craftsmen's Guild and the other 2 4-star refiners also stood up. With respectful smiles on their faces, they cupped their hands towards Guan Yong and said, "Welcome, Lord Guan." Guan Yong looked at them helplessly. He didn't expect that he would be recognized even though he had been keeping a low profile. Seeing that everyone was looking at him in surprise, the crowded area suddenly became sparse. The people around him seemed to be afraid of disturbing him, so they purposely made way for him. Otherwise, if they offended him, the consequences would be unimaginable. Although Guan Yong wasn't a narrow-minded person, he didn't want others to know about it. Guan Yong shook his head helplessly and walked towards the county magistrate and the others. "Don't worry about me. I'm just here to take a look. Don't disturb the order of the competition because of me," Guan Yong said to them. In the past, his status wasn't much higher than these people in front of him. However, ever since he became a 5-star refiner, his status had risen and he was now above them. Even in the provincial capital of Luoshan City, with his status, not many people dared to offend him. Therefore, the few people who used to talk to him as equals were now very careful when talking to him. They even seemed to be trying to curry favor with him. "Haha, it's our honor to have Lord Guan here. How can we disturb the order of the competition?" The county magistrate's words were very beautiful. He didn't mind that he was lower than Guan Yong at all. He asked eagerly, "By the way, Lord Guan came to watch the competition this time. Are the participants of this year's Young Masters tournament familiar to you?" Guan Yong didn't try to hide it. He smiled and said, "They are my 2 useless sons." "The 2 young masters, Guan?" The county magistrate and the others were shocked. After the initial shock, their expressions became excited. They were no strangers to the 2 scions of the Guan clan. Even though they had never met them before, and they had no idea what their names were, it was said that the 2 scions of the Guan clan were no less talented than Guan Yong himself in the field of smithing. On top of that, under the guidance of a 5-star blacksmith like Guan Yong, their accomplishments were bound to be even greater. Thinking that the 2 young masters Guan were also participating in the Young Masters tournament, the county magistrate and the others were pleasantly surprised. Yang County had been at the bottom for several years. This time, they might have a chance to rise up. How could they not be excited? Especially the 2 presidents of the Refiners Association. They couldn't hide their excitement. "I remember now. When I was looking at the name list, there seemed to be 2 participants with similar names, Guan Zhengyang and Guan Zhengda. They should be the 2 young masters of the Guan clan, right?" A 4-star blacksmith suddenly thought of something. Guan Yong smiled and nodded. "That's right. It's the 2 of them." They didn't hide their conversation from the crowd. Therefore, the crowd immediately realized that the two young masters Guan were participating in the young masters tournament. They were very excited and wanted to see the two young masters Guan's performance. At the same time, they were also fantasizing about the young masters tournament in Yang County and becoming an indispensable part of the entire Luoshan city. Great! The two young masters Guan are also participating in the tournament. Yang County is confident this time. Let's see if they still dare to say that Yang County has no talent in the future. I hope the two young masters Guan can be like Lord Guan and make it to the top 10 of the Luoshan city. The people who were watching the competition and the crowd were discussing excitedly. However, unlike them, the faces of the participants around them turned sour. It's over. The two young masters Guan are also participating in the tournament. There are only 15 spots in total. 2 of them are gone. Our chances are even lower now. Lord Guan is a 5-star refiner. The two young masters Guan don't even need to participate in the young masters tournament. Why are they here? Aren't they trying to compete with people like us who have no background and no talent? Sai, stop talking. Keep your voice down. If Lord Guan hears you, you and I won't be able to bear the consequences. Humph, it's not like it's something shameful. Are you afraid that people will talk about it? All the contestants were in a very bad mood. Whether it was the contestants who had the confidence to enter the top 15 or not, they were all very depressed. Based on their understanding of the two young masters of the Guan family, not only could they enter the top 15, but they were also the best of the best among all the contestants. It would not be surprising for them to get first or second place. Therefore, the contestants who had the confidence to enter the top 3 began to feel uneasy and lost their initial confidence. Guan Yong talked with the county magistrate for a while. The time of the tournament was coming. Soon, they stopped talking. The county magistrate nodded to the 4-star refiner who was in charge of hosting the tournament. The latter immediately understood the county magistrate's intention. He stopped the crowd from shouting and announced the start of the tournament. Several soldiers were guarding the entrance of the tournament. One of them, a veteran, was holding a name list and started to call the names. He Rulong. He Rulong was a refiner trained by the Craftsmen's Guild. He was quite talented, but it was still a stretch to call him a genius. However, in a small place like Yang County, he was not bad. There weren't many people who were better than him. It shouldn't be a problem for him to make it to the top 15. Hardly had the veteran's voice faded away when a young man calmly squeezed through the crowd. He nodded to the veteran and walked into the tournament field. He seemed to be quite calm, but there was no telling if he was faking it. Whispers of discussion could be heard all around. Information about He Rulong was also being spread around. Such seeded players were usually very famous. Before the competition, many people had inquired about them and understood their situation. Next, Yi Feng. A slightly frivolous young man slowly walked into the arena with a relaxed smile on his face. Yi Feng was the most likely candidate to be the champion of this year's preliminaries. I heard that he passed the Samsung's refiner exam 2 years ago. This guy's luck isn't too good. He just had to meet the two young masters of the Guan family. But judging from his appearance, he doesn't seem to be flustered at all. I guess he doesn't care too much about it. Hee, which of these geniuses isn't proud and arrogant? Before the result is out, they must be very confident in themselves. While the crowd was talking, the veteran shouted again, "Next, Yang Yang. Next, Deng Hanwen. Next, Zhou Yu. Next, Zhang Feng. Next, Guan Jingyang." Suddenly, as soon as the name was announced, everyone's eyes were fixed on a young man who was calmly walking to the tournament field. Guan Jingyang, the eldest young master of the Guan family. Next, Guan Zhengde, the second young master of the Guan family. The two young masters of the Guan family had finally arrived. Guan Jingyang and Guan Zhengde were only 2 years apart in age. They looked very similar, as if they were made from the same mold. Their temperament was also very similar to Guan Yong's. Some of the older people couldn't help but recall the scene when Guan Yong participated in the tournament 25 years ago. They were so similar, almost identical. The two brothers looked very similar to Guan Yong when he was young. Their temperament was also very similar. Therefore, the older people almost thought that they had gone back in time and recalled their memories. Next, Chen Yi. The veteran didn't leave much time for discussion. He shouted again. Next, Li Chaoyang. Next, Tian Yu. Next, Xin Tong. Next, Duan Meng. Chapter 409. Next, Duan Meng. No one knew who Duan Meng was. It was as if he had popped out of a rock. He had no reputation in the county town. Who knows who Duan Meng is? Who knows? I also want to know where this guy popped out from. How come I've never heard of him before? He's probably from some small town. Sigh, it can't be helped. Our Yang County is getting worse and worse these years. Even the blacksmiths from small towns can be recruited. Oh right, I remember now. I think I saw him sign up that day. If I remember correctly, he should be a blacksmith from Qingshui Town. I heard that he's only 18 years old. Qingshui Town and only 18 years old. Looks like our Yang County has really declined. Sparse discussions could be heard. Hearing this name, Guan Yong couldn't help but be stunned. Duan Meng, why was this name so familiar? After a few breaths, he remembered. Oh right, Master Lin's disciple from the back mountain of Qingshui Town's Duan residence is also called Duan Meng. Guan Yong was suddenly surprised. Could he be here to participate in the young master's competition? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but want to turn around and see if this Duan Meng was really the one he knew. Master Guan, do you know this person? Seeing Guan Yong's strange behavior, the county governor asked curiously. He had some impression of Duan Meng's information. He was a contestant from Clearwater Town who was only 18 years old. There didn't seem to be anything special about him. The only thing special about him was that he was an earth mage. Guan Yong muttered, I do know of a youth called Duan Meng, but I don't know if this Duan Meng is him. As he spoke, he slowly turned around and searched through the crowd. Finally, he saw a familiar figure at the entrance of the competition venue. It really is him. Seeing Duan Meng, Guan Yong's face revealed a smile and even more anticipation. He was very clear that this youth's ability to forge ordinary weapons was even better than his. With his status and ability as a 5-star blacksmith, he couldn't forge an ordinary weapon better than this youth. If he hadn't experienced it himself, he would never have believed it. But because it was unbelievable, it left a deep impression in his mind. He would never forget it in this lifetime. He took a deep breath and stared at Duan Meng, murmuring, "First place, no one else but him." He didn't have the slightest doubt. Other than Duan Meng, there was no one else who could compete for first place in the preliminaries. Even his own 2 sons were no match for this monstrous youth. Although Guan Yong's voice was very soft, the people around him could faintly hear 80% of it. When they reacted, they couldn't help but reveal astonished expressions. They even suspected that they had misheard or missed a few sentences, so they misunderstood Guan Yong's meaning. Cough cough. The county chief coughed a few times and asked in a low voice, "Lord Guan, do you mean that this young man will be the champion of the competition?" There was some doubt in his tone, but he couldn't show it too much, lest he aroused Guan Yong's dissatisfaction. If he offended Guan Yong, the losses would outweigh the gains. Regarding this, Guan Yong did not conceal anything, and did not even hesitate in the slightest. His attitude was incomparably certain as he said, "That's right, that's what I meant." This. Everyone was speechless. Their gazes were once again cast towards the youth, who had just walked into the competition grounds. He looked very bright, very calm, and didn't feel depressed because the people around him didn't cheer for him. A faint smile hung on the corner of his mouth, and his eyes were incomparably clear, like a mountain stream. Overall, he gave people a very comfortable feeling. After taking a closer look, everyone also discovered that this youth was extraordinary. There was a sense of confidence in him, a very calm but bone-deep confidence, as if he could control the world. But, even so, the county chief and the others still didn't dare to believe that he would be the champion. "Lord Guan, you're not joking with us, right?" The county chief smiled as he probed. "This child is young, although he may have some refining ability, but he shouldn't be able to compete with the two young masters of the Guan family, right?" Guan Yong glanced at the few of them. Of course he could see their doubts. If he hadn't personally tested it, he would also be suspicious. But the truth was as such, although he didn't want to admit it, he had to admit it. "You're wrong. Let alone my two sons, even I might not be able to compete with him in certain aspects," Guan Yong smiled bitterly. If what Guan Yong said at the beginning only made the county chief and the others suspicious, then what he said shocked them. Who was Guan Yong? He was the only 5-star artificer in Yang County. Even he had personally admitted that he couldn't compete with this youth in certain aspects. It was hard to imagine just how terrifying this youth was. They believed that Guan Yong would never joke about his reputation. As a result, perhaps this youth really did have some unusual methods. If that's really the case, then won't our Yang County be in the limelight in the Young Masters tournament this time? The county chief and the others immediately became fired up. Their gazes towards Duan Meng became heated as well. Everyone followed Guan Yong and the county chief's gazes, only to discover that they were actually paying attention to an ordinary youth. They were all shocked. For a moment, the extremely ordinary youth seemed to glow faintly, attracting more and more people's gazes. In an empty corner, Sovereign Yunfan and Duan Xiong watched from afar. As expected of Principal Lin's disciple. He's so calm even though it's his first time participating in a tournament. Duan Xiong sighed emotionally. Our Duan clan really has to thank our ancestors for having such a genius disciple. Yunfan slowly withdrew his gaze from Duan Meng and rolled his eyes. "Don't mention this to me in the future, or I'll have no choice but to beat you up to vent my anger." He was more frustrated than anyone that he could only brush past a genius like this. Duan Xiong rarely saw his master suffer like this. He could not help but chuckle. Yunfan widened his eyes, as if he was about to lose his temper. Duan Xiong immediately stopped laughing when he saw him like that. However, he was still secretly pleased with himself. It didn't take long for all the contestants to enter the competition venue and choose their casting spot. Only when the 4-star artificer in charge of the tournament announced the rules of the tournament did he signal for a soldier to light the incense. The tournament had officially begun. Everyone in the surroundings focused their attention on Guan Jingyang, Guan Zhengde, Yi Feng, and so on. Only Guan Yong, the governor, the president and vice presidents of the Craftsmen's Guild, and the two 4-star artificers nearby secretly shifted their attention to Duan Meng. Although everyone lit up their cauldrons and began to create fire in their palms, the difference was that every participant had a different ability to create fire. When Guan Yong, the governor, and the others paid attention to Duan Meng's palms, they all became shocked. Guan Yong was still all right. After all, he had already seen it once. The shock in his heart was a little less, and his expression was not that obvious. However, his shock was not much less than the others. This was because he discovered that Duan Meng's palm fire ability had actually improved a little from the originally perfect foundation. It was truly terrifying. Everyone knew that the stronger the ability, the more difficult it was to continue improving it. However, Duan Meng had actually managed to improve her ability to create fire again in just over a year, and by a lot at that. It was rather terrifying. As for the county magistrate and the others, they were truly in a state of shock. Heavens, this ability to create fire is perfect. It's basically perfect. Too awesome. He only used a little bit of time to push the flames to the extreme. Genius, a genius that is hard to come by in 100 years. Even we can't compare with his ability to create fire. The two presidents of the Craftsmen's Guild, as well as the two 4-star blacksmiths beside them, were so shocked that their eyeballs almost popped out. They could not believe that such an ability to create fire actually appeared in the body of a youngster. This was illogical, too illogical. Duan Meng's simple move had stunned everyone. Lord Guan said that he is inferior to this youngster in some aspects. Could it be that he was referring to the fire in his palms? The president of the Craftsmen's Guild gave a wry smile. With this youngster's ability to create fire, it's no wonder that Lord Guan admitted that he is inferior. He was still giving face to Guan Yong. Otherwise, he would have said that Guan Yong's ability to create fire was probably inferior to this youngster's by a large margin. Only a 6-star blacksmith would have a chance to compete with him. What a monster! The few bigwigs simultaneously thought of this word in their minds. In less than 10 minutes, Duan Meng had finished creating the fire in his palms. The raging flames had completely stabilized. The expressions of the county governor and the others became more and more fervent as they exclaimed even more. Collecting and dispersing, heating the materials and repeating the process, although it seemed boring, it was also an essential part of refining. After a moment, Duan Meng took out the materials and finally began the most important moment of forging. Here he comes. Guan Yong, the county governor, the president of the Craftsmen's Guild, and the others all stared at the youngster without blinking. If they were shocked by the youngster's amazing ability to create fire in his palms at the beginning, then they were now looking forward to the youngster's refining skills. If this youngster's refining skills are half as good as Lord Guan's, they thought, then this youngster will probably be the champion. They gradually understood the meaning of Guan Yong's words. At least, they thought that they had understood Guan Yong's meaning. However, only Guan Yong himself knew that in terms of refining skills, this youngster was even more terrifying. It was not that the youngster's refining skills were not half as good as his, but that his skills were not half as good as this youngster's. Everyone had misunderstood his meaning. Finally it began. Here he comes. Looking at the materials being taken out and the giant hammer slowly rising into the air, Guan Yong's heart thumped heavily. Ha! A light shout sounded in the youngster's mind. In an instant, the giant hammer turned into a raging storm. With the momentum of 1,000 caddies, it began its stunning hammering journey. Ding ding ding, the incomparably crisp and raging sound attracted the attention of the surrounding audience. Chapter 410. The hammers were dancing passionately like a fiery giant. They were like a storm or a tsunami. Blurred shadows overlapped each other, dazzling everyone's eyes. There was almost no interval between the crisp sounds. They were pleasant to the ears and intoxicating to the ears. At this moment, everyone's gazes were pulled over and gathered on the thin youth. Just as their gazes fell on the youth, their eyes, without exception, revealed extreme shock. What kind of skill was that? What kind of speed was that? How could a young man perform refining skills to such an amazing degree? No, it was not refining skills. It was an art of violence. Extreme violence produced a strange sense of beauty that made people reluctant to move their eyes away. It was a spiritual enjoyment, a baptism from the inside out, a feast for the eyes. The ordinary young man suddenly became dazzling. He stole the glory of the geniuses and became the brightest star. Ding ding ding. Ding ding ding. Ding ding ding. The position of the giant hammer was constantly changing. The clear and melodious sound, due to the change in position, changed slightly, giving people the illusion of a change in tone. Together, It formed a symphony that stirred people's hearts. It was like a storm without warning, causing the nearby people's expressions to change. Shua! 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 Guan Yong, the county governor, the president and vice president of the Craftsmen's Guild, and the 4-star refiners stood up almost at the same time. What an amazing speed! Is it an illusion? Why do I feel that his forging skills are so wonderful? He is at least 10 times faster than me. I'm afraid that even the average 6-star refiners are not as good as him. What kind of skill is that? Who can tell me what kind of skill is that? For a moment, the young man became the center of attention. Lin Feng's unique refining skills were shown for the first time in a small county in the Luoshan City province of the Han Dynasty. Unsurprisingly, it attracted everyone's attention and shocked countless people. Nobody could keep calm in front of such amazing skills. Shocked faces and astonished gazes became the main theme in the county governor's mansion. The bustling county governor's mansion fell into an extreme silence the moment the young man began to forge. Not a single ripple could be heard. Everyone's hearts were surging with waves of shock. That extremely violent voice even caused the hearts of the surrounding contestants to tremble. Like a volcanic eruption, they burst forth with even greater enthusiasm. At some point in time, the young man's forging had finished. The forging hammer was quietly lying on the edge of the forging table. A simple and unadorned long blade was placed in the middle of the forging table. This blade was the young man's masterpiece. However, the surrounding people were still silent. The scenes of the young man casting just now replayed in their minds, and they didn't return to their senses for a long time. Hiss! The sound of someone sucking in a breath of cold air finally broke the silence in the mansion. Following the sound of gasps, an uproar broke out in the mansion. Whoosh! Everyone couldn't sit still. They all looked at the young man in shock, their eyes reflecting the young man's frail figure. At this time, they were already unable to describe the excitement in their hearts. An uncontrollable excitement surged into their hearts, causing their faces to crawl with excited smiles. It was too shocking. The young man's skills subverted their understanding of refining. That kind of freewheeling and unconventional skill was undoubtedly the perfect masterpiece of God. I think he's called Duan Meng. From Qingshui Town, 18 years old. Everyone's topic of discussion was, without exception, related to the young man. However, they were more concerned about the skills the young man used in the refining process. Who created it? Why was it so intoxicating? How did such violent beauty come about? Other than the young man's identity, everyone knew almost nothing about him. No one could answer the questions in their hearts, so they became more and more curious. Guan Yong, the county governor, and the others looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Compared to this young man, Yi Feng, Guan Xingyang, and Guan Zhengde, none of them could compete with him. The gap was too big. This kind of genius is the best I've ever seen in my life. I wonder which weapon refiner would be so lucky as to take him under his wing. The county governor, the president of the Craftsmen's Guild, and the others couldn't help but sigh with envy. However, Guan Yong smiled bitterly to himself. Genius? Perhaps only someone like Master Lin can teach such a monstrous disciple? Compared to everyone's shock at the young man's talent, Guan Yong was more interested in the young man's teacher. Because it was that person who taught the young man to become a stunning genius. Without this teacher, the young man might have been lost in the crowd instead of soaring to the sky. After a long time, the young man who was sitting cross-legged slowly opened his eyes. At this time, in the competition field, the many competitors had finally finished their forging. After the competition, it was time for the quality testing. The 4-star refiner ordered people to bring in the metal and demon arbalests for testing. Then, he began to test the quality of the weapons forged by the competitors according to the order on the roster. He Long, the young man whose name was called, stood up and walked over. He respectfully handed the saber to the middle-aged man. Soon, the result of the weapon quality was out. 3 feet and 1 inch. That's great. He Long clenched his fist. Obviously, he was very satisfied with the result. With this result, it was almost certain that he would enter the top 15. Next, Yi Feng. As the genius who had the highest chance of becoming the champion, Yi Feng's result was much better than He Long's. 3 feet and 7 inches. Yi Feng smiled faintly. He glanced at Guan Jingyang and Guan Jingda. He had already guessed his result. Obviously, it was not out of his expectation. However, he was more interested in Guan Jingyang and Guan Jingda's results. The son of a 5-star refiner was qualified to be his opponent. Soon, the middle-aged man called Guan Jingyang's name. Next, Guan Jingyang. Guan Jingyang stood up calmly and handed the saber to the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man looked at him with admiration and began the test. 4 feet and 1 inch. As soon as the results came out, the surrounding people all revealed looks of surprise. Yi Feng also looked at Guan Jingyang in surprise. No wonder you are Master Guan's son. You are indeed powerful. He looked at Guan Jingyang with a serious expression. Guan Yong smiled and felt comforted. At least he didn't embarrass me. Next, Guan Jingda. 4 feet. 4 feet. That was a good result as well. It was much better than the previous champions. The two brothers' craftsmanship skills were on par with each other. They had stolen the limelight from the rest of the contestants and became the 2 brightest stars in the competition. Guan Yong immediately felt honored, and a faint smile appeared on his lips. The crowd started to discuss among themselves. This year's Master Youth competition is much better than the previous ones. If I'm not mistaken, the champion of the last Youth Masters preliminary round only got a score of 3 feet and 5 inches. That's right. It was even worse. The best contestant only got 3 feet and 3 inches. Ever since Master Guan participated in the Master Youth competition, no contestant has ever gotten more than 3 feet and 5 inches. He has finally made us proud this time. Maybe there will be a few more geniuses like Master Guan in Yang County. Like father, like son of a dog. Master Guan is so good. The 2 sons of the Guan family are not bad either. Maybe there will be 2 more 5-star craftsmen in Yang County in 20 years. That Yi Feng is not bad either. He is younger than the 2 sons of the Guan family and his result is quite good. Everyone was talking about Guan Jingyang, Guan Jingda, and Yi Feng as if they were the main characters of the competition. However, deep in their hearts there was a trace of anticipation. They would occasionally glance at the thin figure from the corner of their eyes. They would never forget the young man with amazing skills. However, most of the contestants did not notice that. They could not afford to be distracted during the competition. Naturally, they did not see the young man's amazing craftsmanship. Next, Duan Meng. The middle-aged man's voice trembled when he read the name. The excitement in his heart was uncontrollable like an erupting volcano. It was also at this time that the bustling mansion fell into silence. All eyes were on the figure who was slowly getting up. At this moment, he was the only focus. The contestants were stunned. They could not understand the crowd's actions. Could there be something special about this young man? I saw you crafting just now. Not bad at all. The middle-aged man's tense face showed a surprisingly gentle smile. He even praised the young man without holding back. Thank you. The young man did not become arrogant because of this. Instead, he cupped his fists and thanked the middle-aged man. Seeing this, the admiration in the crowd's eyes deepened. The doubt in the eyes of the many participants also grew a little thicker. They really couldn't understand what was so special about this half-grown boy. Why was everyone's reaction so strange? Even the usually strict Lord Huang Hai had a rare moment of praise for him. Lord Huang Hai even had a warm smile on his face. It made the competitors feel as if they had seen a ghost. It was inconceivable. Master Huang Hai carefully placed Duanmeng's saber on the demon stone crossbow. Whoosh! As the demon stone crossbow's energy was activated, the saber turned into a bolt of lightning. With a flash, it stabbed into the test metal. Everyone's eyes followed the saber and shifted to the test metal. Crack! A clear and melodious voice entered their ears. When they focused their eyes, their expressions, without exception, froze. The contestants were also stunned on the spot, falling into a daze. They saw that the saber was stabbed into the stone pillar behind the test metal. The saber swayed gently and made a soft sound. In the center of the test metal was a hole. It was wriggling slowly. Finally, it closed and returned to normal. Everyone couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. That long saber had actually pierced through the testing metal. P.S. My head is a little dizzy. I feel that I did not write what I wanted to write in this chapter. Please forgive me. Chapter 4:11. Everyone was dumbfounded as they stared at the saber stuck in the stone. 6 feet, 7 inches. Huang Hai's voice became extremely hoarse, and his throat was extremely dry. Everyone stared at the young man in the field with excited gazes. They had heard that a participant in the kingdom of Zhao had once forged a weapon that could pierce through metal. In the past, they had only treated it as a rumor. Even if it was true, they were unwilling to believe it. Today, they had witnessed such a miracle with their own eyes. It pierced through. That weapon had actually managed to pierce through the metal that was being tested. A fine weapon. The quality of this normal weapon is no less than a fine weapon. Everyone's gazes burned with excitement. Yi Feng, who had always maintained a frivolous appearance, wiped away his smile at this moment. He was greatly shocked. Guan Jingyang and Guan Jingda also stared at the young man in shock. All the contestants felt a deep shock in their hearts. The huge difference made them feel inexplicably ashamed of their inferiority. This young man gave them a feeling of invincibility. Everyone was dumbfounded. Their gazes were gradually filled with respect. Even Yi Feng, a genius who thought himself to be extraordinary, was deeply impressed. They could not imagine what kind of technique, what kind of timing, what kind of concentration, and what kind of control of flames were required to forge a normal weapon into a fine weapon. It was as if there was an insurmountable gap between them and the young man. This originally inconspicuous youth had finally erupted with a brilliant radiance, becoming the brightest star. From this day onwards, Qingshui Town and Duanmeng would undoubtedly become legends of Yang County and even Luoshan City for a very long time. It could not be said that there would be no one like him in the future, but at the very least, no one had ever done it before. In an empty corner of the manor, Sovereign Yun Fan and Duan Xiong both secretly smiled when they saw how shocked everyone was. After Principal Lin's careful nurturing, even a person with an incomparably poor aptitude would become a genius that few could match. Moreover, Duanmeng herself had astonishing talent. Others might have believed that Duanmeng's talent was terrifyingly terrifying, but Sovereign Yun Fan and Duan Xiong knew extremely well that it was not because Duanmeng was a deviant. Instead, it was because Principal Lin's teaching ability was just too great. Even 2 laymen like them had gained some understanding of artifact forging. As a matter of fact, they even understood some aspects better than high-tier artificers. However, they had never learned it systematically, so they were unable to use the various techniques. After a long while, Huang Hai announced everyone's results and rankings. Even he did not know when he finished announcing it. Until the end of the match and Duanmeng's figure disappeared from the arena, no one had regained their senses. With that, the preliminary round of the Master Youth Tournament in Yang County came to an end. Duanmeng, the dark horse, had caused a huge commotion. News about him had spread to every corner of Yang County. On the main road outside Yang County, a horse carriage was galloping. In the carriage, Sovereign Yun Fan, Duan Xiong, and Duan Meng sat opposite each other. Duan Meng, the advancement round is different from the preliminary round. The elimination round is extremely brutal. How about it? Are you confident about making it to the top 3? Sovereign Yun Fan chuckled as he asked. The young man closed the book in his hand and smiled faintly. My target is the finals. In other words, he did not take the advancement round or the finals seriously. Just how great was the confidence in his words? He had just heard Sovereign Yun Fan mention his teacher's past achievements. From the preliminary round, to the advancement round, and to the finals, he had emerged as champion without any exception, and he had set records for all of them. He did not dream of breaking his teacher's records. As long as he could follow in his teacher's footsteps, he would be satisfied. Of course, his teacher did not take part in the finals due to special reasons, which left him with a regret. As his disciple, he hoped to make up for his teacher's regret through his own hard work. Time flew. This young man from a small town was like a tornado, causing a huge storm in the Luoshan province. From the first round of the advancement round to the final round of the advancement round, the young man dominated the first place with an unstoppable momentum, and the result of piercing through the metal test again and again, the miracle of 6 feet and 7 inches continued. Finally, it caused a huge sensation in this city that had been peaceful for a long time. The name of the genius Duan Meng spread like wildfire. The gazes of countless forces were focused on this young man, each with their own thoughts. If the major forces could still hold back their impulse and bide their time, no one would be able to hold back after the finals a month later. This crazy storm did not stop. Instead, it continued to expand and eventually engulfed the entire Han dynasty. This dark horse defeated the geniuses from the various provinces of the Han dynasty and proved his refining ability. The youngest champion in history. Even Lin Feng did not get this title back then. Who would have thought that his disciple, Duan Meng, would get it? After the finals ended, all the major forces came to the Great Void Pavilion together, as if they had made an appointment. It was the place where the Han dynasty's imperial family specially arranged for the blacksmith geniuses from the various provinces to stay and practice temporarily. When he heard that many people were visiting, Duan Meng stopped practicing. He frowned, wiped his sweat, and walked out of the refining room. This is the champion of this year's Young Masters Tournament, Duan Meng. The number 1 guard of the Great Void Pavilion, Jiang Su, introduced him to everyone with a smile. Without waiting for Duan Meng to speak, everyone greeted him. I'm Yan Shan, the president of the Imperial Capital's Craftsmen's Guild. I've long heard of your amazing talent. Today I see that you're indeed extraordinary. I'm one by one, they rushed to speak. First, they introduced themselves, then they flattered him. The young man was inexperienced and did not talk much with them. He asked curiously, "May I ask why you're looking for me?" Everyone looked at each other. Yan Shan was the first to speak. I'm here on behalf of the Craftsmen's Guild to invite you to join our Craftsmen's Guild. As long as you're willing, we can provide you with unlimited materials, rare materials, and even precious materials for your practice. We can provide 1 or 2 of them. I'm here for the same reason as President Yen. Our Lion Mercenary Group is famous in the entire Greenwood continent. If you're willing to join our mercenary group, I can promise you a position as a deacon. Moreover, I can mobilize a large amount of resources to help you. Duan Meng understood what everyone meant. However, he was not alone. In his heart, the most important person was his teacher. Therefore, he rejected everyone's invitation without hesitation. Such a merciless rejection caused everyone to feel rather dissatisfied in their hearts. Although Duan Meng had great potential and had the hope of being promoted to a top-tier 6-star weapon refiner, he was not a top-tier 6-star weapon refiner after all. He was not even a 5-star weapon refiner. They were willing to put down their faces and personally come to the Great Void Pavilion. They were already giving Duan Meng a lot of face. However, they did not expect Duan Meng to be so tactless as if he did not put them in his eyes at all. Yan Shan frowned and took a deep look at Duan Meng before turning to leave. The rest of the people tried to persuade him again and again, but when they saw that they could not change Duan Meng's decision, they finally left unhappily. However, before they found out if there was a powerful force behind Duan Meng, they did not dare to fall out with Duan Meng and take him away. Seeing this, Duan Meng did not care. He returned to the refining room and continued to practice. Fortunately, I comprehended the profound meaning of the earth when I participated in the advancement competition. Otherwise, I really don't have the confidence to win the finals. He could not help but rejoice in his heart. In the finals, he saw geniuses from all over the world. Only then did he realize that he had underestimated the world in the past. If he had not comprehended the profound meaning of the earth and practiced day and night, fusing the 100 casting technique and nearly half of the 1,000 casting technique, the champion of this finals might not have fallen to him. The weather gradually turned cold. In the blink of an eye, there was only half a month until the finals. Duan Meng packed his luggage and embarked on his journey to the Zhao country. The finals of the previous Young Masters tournament were held in the imperial capital of the Great Qin Empire. This time, the finals of the Young Masters tournament were held in the imperial capital of the Zhao country. The location of the finals was rotated between the imperial capitals of the three empires. Duan Xiong did not follow. Instead, he was in charge of the family's affairs in the Luoshan city province. Yun Fan hid in the dark, silently protecting him. The reason why he hid in the dark was to let Duan Meng have better experience. Otherwise, the experience would lose its meaning. The sky gradually darkened. Duan Meng stopped beside a yellow path. He took off his bag and prepared to set up a tent. At this moment, an old laugh rang out. "Kid, I just took a nap. I never thought you'd be so far away. You've made me look for you." As soon as he finished speaking, an old figure shot through the sky, stopping above Duan Meng in the end. "Sir, you've got the wrong person, right?" Duan Meng did not remember knowing this old man. However, the old man shook his head gently. He smiled and said with great certainty, "I'm not mistaken. You're Duan Meng, right?" Duan Meng's eyes swiveled. He said cautiously, "You've really got the wrong person. I'm not Duan Meng." "Don't worry, I won't hurt you." The old man was clearly extremely certain of Duan Meng's identity. He did not argue with Duan Meng about whether he had the wrong person or not. There's no need to deny it in such a hurry. Let me finish first. I'm Eagle Mountain's sect master, also known as Supreme Eagle Mountain. A few days ago, I happened to see you crafting. Seeing that your aptitude is pretty good, I plan to take you as my disciple." After he finished speaking, Supreme Eagle Mountain looked at Duan Meng with a smile. "You only have one chance. I hope you'll grasp it well." As a mid-level exalt, and a veteran mid-level exalt at that, Exalting Shan was undoubtedly extremely confident. In his opinion, it was Duan Meng's fortune to be able to become his disciple. He had never considered whether or not Duan Meng would refuse. Moreover, even if Duan Meng really refused, with his mid-rank supreme cultivation, wouldn't taking Duan Meng away be easy? As for the teacher or power behind Duan Meng, he didn't place them in his eyes. There were only a few high-rank supremes in the entire Azure Wood continent, and peak-rank supremes were even rarer. Furthermore, they had never appeared in the world. Furthermore, he knew every single high-rank supremes. He had never heard of any of them accepting any outstanding disciples, let alone teaching them how to refine artifacts. As for those below high-rank supremes, he wasn't afraid of anyone. "I'm sorry. I already have a teacher." Duan Meng shook his head and slowly said, "In this lifetime, I will only recognize this one teacher." Supreme Eagle Mountain narrowed his eyes and his tone became dangerous. "You better think carefully. I am a mid-rank supreme. There are very few people in the world who can compare to me. It is your honor to be able to become my disciple." Duan Meng hesitated for a moment, then shook his head again. "I'm sorry. I'll still say the same thing. I will only recognize that one teacher." He did not know who was more powerful between Supreme Eagle Mountain and his teacher. However, no matter who was more powerful, he would not change his mind. At most, he would not return to Qinshui town, so as to avoid implicating his teacher and causing him to lose his life. "Ha ha ha ha. I admire your loyalty very much. However, I hate your stupidity very much." Supreme Eagle Mountain laughed and suddenly flew towards Duan Meng. He grabbed Duan Meng's arm with one hand, preparing to take Duan Meng away. "Whether you are willing to become my disciple or not is no longer up to you. If I want to take a disciple, no one has dared to refuse." Supreme Eagle Mountain was used to being overbearing. How could he allow a youngster to refuse? Chapter 412. Every expert who could cultivate to the Supreme Being level was a unique genius, and they all had different stubborn personalities. Supreme Eagle Mountain was undoubtedly the most domineering of them all. Even when facing a Supreme Being whose strength was higher than his, he would not back down and argue unreasonably. But when facing a Supreme Being whose strength was lower than his, he was even more unreasonable. Moreover, Duan Meng was only a half-grown brat, so why would he take Duan Meng's attitude to heart? Not acknowledging him as a teacher? Sure. I'll bring you back first. As for whether or not you want to acknowledge me as your master, that's your problem. However, whether or not I want to accept you as my disciple is my problem. Since Autarch Eagle Mountain had decided to take Duan Meng as his disciple, he would definitely not change his mind easily. Even if Duan Meng's talent suddenly vanished one day, or even if his dantian was crippled, Autarch Eagle Mountain would still take him as his disciple. This was Paragon Eagle Mountain, a stubborn old fogey. This personality of his made the few sovereigns who were stronger than him unable to do anything to him. Under normal circumstances, he would not easily offend sovereigns who were stronger than him. However, once he truly made up his mind, he would not care about anyone. Therefore, even if there was a small dispute over something, others would not directly act against him over such a small matter. As time went on, his personality became more and more domineering and stubborn. However, in the face of this domineering Supreme Being, Duan Meng was fearless. She said seriously, "I would rather commit suicide than take you as my master." It just so happened that this stubborn old fogey met a little fogey who was even more stubborn than him. "In front of me, you have no chance to commit suicide." Supreme Eagle Mountain smiled faintly, and his tone carried pride and confidence. "If you don't believe me, then feel free to give it a try." Duan Meng said calmly, "You can stop me for a while, but you can't stop me forever." Supreme Eagle Mountain glanced at Duan Meng with surprise when he heard this. He suddenly felt that this little fellow was extremely similar to him, and he felt even more admiration towards Duan Meng in his heart. He roared with laughter and said, "I don't care if I'm able to stop you for a lifetime. So long as I stop you from taking your life before you take me as your master, it's enough." You! Duan Meng was still too young after all. Seeing Supreme Eagle Mountain not give up even at this point, he finally couldn't hold it in any longer. Paragon Eagle Mountain grabbed Duan Meng's arm, preparing to fly up. However, things in the world were always unpredictable. Just as Paragon Eagle Mountain was about to take off, a figure appeared in front of him as though it had teleported. An old man smiled and said, "I suggest you put him down. Otherwise, the consequences will be more serious." As soon as this old man appeared, Paragon Eagle Mountain's heart trembled. He could smell a trace of danger from this old man. Among those who could make him feel danger, the weakest was at least a high-level supreme martial artist. Taking a look at the old man, supreme martial artist Ing Shan's expression turned grave. His eyes narrowed slightly. High-level supreme martial artist? Not long ago, I was lucky enough to break through to high-level supreme martial artist. The old man stared at Autarch Eagle Mountain, then swept his gaze over Duan Meng. Put him down first. With me here, you won't be able to take him away. His tone was very relaxed, but the powerful confidence contained within it far surpassed Autarch Eagle Mountain's. High-level supreme martial artists were already one of the people who stood at the apex of the Xingfeng Plain. Autarch Eagle Mountain did not put Duan Meng down. Although he sensed danger from the old man's strength, he trained in the laws of shadow, which was suited for stealth. He was skilled at hiding himself, and he could even erase his presence. He had escaped from high-level autarchs many times in the past, including when several high-level autarchs of the Everlasting Continent had attacked him. He had used this technique to escape. As a result, although he could not defeat a high-level autarch, he was still very confident in escaping. Do you want to steal my disciple as well? Paragon Eagle Mountain stared at the old man. The old man shook his head. No, I'm protecting this child on behalf of someone else. At the same time, Duan Meng called out in surprise and joy, Senior Cloudsail. Indeed, this old man was the person who had been secretly protecting Duan Meng, Autarch Cloudsail. Autarch Cloudsail. So you are Autarch Cloudsail. Autarch Eagle Mountain had heard of Autarch Cloudsail's name before. He had also heard from others that Autarch Cloudsail had broken through to become a high-level autarch. However, I've already decided to take this kid as my disciple. Since he's not your disciple, and you have no intention of taking him as your disciple, why make things difficult for me? Although he was not worried about his own safety, he still did not want to fall out with a high-level autarch so easily. However, Autarch Cloudsail said sternly, Eagle Mountain, I've heard of you a long time ago. However, if you think you can do whatever you want with just the laws of shadow, then you're far too naive. Autarch Eagle Mountain declined to comment. He said, at the very least, you're not confident in stopping me, right? To Autarch Eagle Mountain's surprise, Autarch Cloudsail did not refute him. Instead, he nodded very seriously, that's right. I'm not confident in stopping you either. Autarch Eagle Mountain was surprised. He asked, then why are you still standing in front of me? Autarch Cloudsail sighed in confusion. He looked at Autarch Eagle Mountain pitifully and said, I'm helping you. Do you know that? Helping me? Autarch Eagle Mountain immediately felt like this was the funniest joke in the world. If you're helping me, then don't stop me. If my Eagle Mountain wants to take in a disciple, even high-level autarchs can forget about stopping me. He was very arrogant and he had the right to be arrogant. Escaping from the hands of Mu Wushuang, a high-level autarch of the weapon refining sect, was without a doubt something to be proud of. Even a high-level autarch of the Han Empire had failed to escape from Mu Wushuang, yet he had done it. It was enough to prove that he had even surpassed regular high-level autarchs when it came to staying alive. Autarch Cloudsail could not help but look at Autarch Eagle Mountain pitifully. The ignorant are fearless. Autarch Eagle Mountain was extremely displeased by his gaze, so he said impatiently, What are you trying to say? Stop being so wishy-washy. I don't have the time to chat with you. Do you know whose disciple he is? Autarch Cloudsail pointed at Duan Meng. I don't care whose disciple he is. Once my Eagle Mountain has taken a fancy to him, no matter whose disciple he is, he has to become my disciple obediently. Autarch Eagle Mountain smiled proudly. Ha ha ha. Autarch Cloudsail immediately laughed aloud before saying to Duan Meng, Duan Meng, tell him who your master is. Duan Meng was stunned. He had no idea just how powerful his master was, but from what Autarch Cloudsail had said, it seemed like his master was extremely powerful, so powerful that even this unfamiliar, powerful old man had heard of his master's name before. As he guessed, he said slowly, "My master is Lin Feng." He glanced at Yun Fan curiously. Then, he turned to look at Supreme Eagle Mountain. He wanted to see if his teacher was really so powerful. Just by saying his name, he could scare off an unparalleled super expert. However, Autark Eagle Mountain's reaction disappointed him. Autark Eagle Mountain sneered, "Lin Feng? Never heard of him. What, is this person very powerful? Get him over here. I'll make him understand what true power is and make him obediently hand over his disciple to me." Although he felt that this name was a little familiar, he couldn't remember who this person was at the moment. Therefore, in his opinion, this person must be a primary supreme or intermediate supreme. There was no need to take this person to heart, because he already knew the real experts, especially those who could threaten him, by heart. Duan Meng looked at Autark Cloudsail helplessly. Never heard of him? Autark Cloudsail widened his eyes before shaking his head and sighing. Then he said to Duan Meng, "Duan Meng, do you still remember your master's nickname?" "Nickname? Right. What do we usually call your master?" Autark Cloudsail nodded and reminded him. After thinking about it, Duan Meng said 3 words with some uncertainty, "Principal Lin?" With that, he said after some thought, "That should be the only title. I've never heard of the rest." "Senior Cloudsail, are you talking about the title of Principal Lin?" As soon as he said that, he caught a glimpse of Autark Eagle Mountain from the corner of his eye. The arrogant smile on Autark Eagle Mountain's face had actually frozen. A smear of fear flashed through his eyes. Afterwards, this Autark Eagle Mountain, who was known for his domineering and stubbornness, actually shivered, subconsciously letting go of Duan Meng's hand. "Be Principal Lin. Why is it Principal Lin?" Autark Eagle Mountain was immediately stunned. A person's name was like a tree's shadow. A single nickname had actually made this extremely domineering Autark Cloudsail pale in fright and sweat profusely. Duan Meng stared at this scene in shock. His mind blanked out. For a moment, he was at a loss. Was this cowardly old man really that domineering and arrogant super expert from before? A single nickname had already made him so frightened. If his master was here in person, just how frightened would this old man be? Duan Meng felt like his brain was rather lacking. He was unable to imagine just what it would be like. However, he was certain that his mysterious master seemed to be very impressive. Yes, extremely impressive. "You remember now?" Autark Yun Fan looked at Autark Eagle Mountain with a vague smile. Gulp. Swallowing a mouthful of saliva, Supreme Eagle Mountain nodded with difficulty. How many people in this world haven't heard of Principal Lin's name? It wasn't that he didn't remember Principal Lin, but he didn't remember that Principal Lin's real name was Lin Feng. Principal Lin had taken on 3 peak autarchs all by himself, and he had killed 3 peak autarchs. He had countless experts under his command, including several dozen autarchs alone. His invincible ability to forge artifacts had made him the most sought-after artificer in the world. Aside from the few Earth Saints who remained hidden from the world, Principal Lin was definitely the most terrifying existence in the entire Xingfeng realm. Whether it was his personal strength or the organizations under his command, he was an existence that could not be provoked. He was the strongest below Earth Saints. Yet, he, Autark Eagle Mountain, had actually tried to steal his disciple as if he was looking to die. Just the thought of it made Autark Eagle Mountain feel a mountainous pressure. He was about to collapse. "Isn't Master a little too impressive?" Duan Meng looked at Autark Eagle Mountain, who was so frightened that his face was drained of blood. He was rather at a loss for what to do. A single name had actually made a mid-Autark Eagle Mountain so frightened. However, Autark Yun Fan had no intention of mocking Autark Eagle Mountain at all. It would be strange if Autark Eagle Mountain did not react at all. P.S. First update. Chapter 413. The Great Qin Empire, the Han Dynasty, and the Zhao Empire each had 3 geniuses participating in the finals. They were the champion, runner-up, and runner-up respectively, representing the highest level of their empire. The Great Qin Empire had taken the championship of the previous Young Masters tournament. This time, the Zhao Empire and the Han Dynasty had mustered all their strength and planned to make a comeback. The Great Qin Empire's top 3 finalists were Lian Chongtian, Wu Maoyun, and Hong Lei. Lian Chongtian was the descendant of the Lian family where Lian Yunfei was from. Although he was not as good as the Crown Prince Yingqing, he was not far behind. He was suspected to be a high-level 4-star blacksmith with a high-level earth profound comprehension. Wu Maoyun was the genius of the Royal College of the Great Qin Empire. She was also the last disciple of the principal of the Royal College. She was suspected to be a high-level 4-star blacksmith with a mid-level earth profound comprehension. Hong Lei was the son of the leader of a large mercenary group in the Great Qin Empire. He had been learning from a supreme 6-star blacksmith. He was suspected to be a high-level 4-star blacksmith with a mid-level earth profound comprehension. The Han Dynasty's top 3 finalists were Duan Meng, Hong Yi, and Chu Xiongba. Duan Meng had a mysterious background. It was said that he came from the countryside. His skills were superb, and he had broken the competition record many times. He was suspected to be a high-level 4-star blacksmith with an unknown earth profound comprehension. Hong Yi was the personal disciple of the Craftsmen's Guild's president. She was suspected to be a high-level 4-star blacksmith with a mid-level earth profound comprehension. Chu Xiongba was the personal disciple of the royal blacksmith of the Han Dynasty. He was also a member of the Royal Blacksmith Guild. He was suspected to be a high-level 4-star blacksmith with a mid-level earth profound comprehension. The Zhao Empire's top 3 finalists were Fu Yi, Yang Rui, and Qin Ku. Fu Yi was the personal disciple of Principal Lin, who was respected by everyone in the world. He was the only son of a new 6-star blacksmith, Yuan Shan. He was suspected to be a 4-star blacksmith, but his understanding of the profound of earth was unknown. Yang Rui was the granddaughter of Yang Luqing, the number 1 6-star blacksmith in the Zhao Empire. She was suspected to be a high-level 4-star blacksmith with a high-level earth profound comprehension. Qin Ku was the successor of the Qin family. He was the favorite disciple of the 5-star blacksmith Han Lin. He was suspected to be a high-level 4-star blacksmith with a mid-level earth profound comprehension. Among them, Lian Chongtian, Xiongba Chu, and Yang Rui had participated in the finals of the last Youth Masters tournament, while the other 6 were new faces. The above was the simple information announced by the Craftsmen's Guild. About 10 days later, Duan Meng's figure appeared in the capital of the Kingdom of Zhao, the capital of Zhao. This is the place where teacher stayed for a long time? The young man's pace was neither fast nor slow. He walked leisurely, admiring the foreign scenery along the way. Perhaps because he loved the house, the young man felt that this city was very beautiful and charming. It didn't lose the richness of history. It was pleasing to the eye no matter how he looked at it. About an hour later, Duan Meng arrived at Chaoying Pavilion, the temporary residence. All the geniuses who were participating in the finals lived here and had a crafting room to themselves. After showing her identity, Duan Meng took the number plate and found her room. She had no intention of interacting with the other geniuses. The finals would be held in 5 days. She planned to use the last 5 days to practice hard. As of now, he had already comprehended the profound of the earth to a high level. In terms of skill fusion, he had already fused the 100 casting skill, the 1000 casting skill, and the 10,000 casting skill. If he could fuse the 10,000 casting skill to 8,000 in the last 5 days, he would be even more confident. Of course, if she could raise the profound of earth from an advanced level to an advanced level, she might be more confident. Teacher seems to have said that a few senior brothers are also in the capital. I wonder if they are participating in the Youth Masters tournament. Duan Meng's heart was filled with anticipation. I really hope to compete with them. Even if I lose to them, I won't have any regret. He really wanted to see the glory of his senior brothers. The rest of the geniuses arrived at Chaoying Pavilion one after another. Like Duan Meng, they fought for every minute and every second to practice without stopping. 5 days passed in a flash. The person in charge of bringing the geniuses to the eastern drill ground of the Chaoyang Palace was Linfeng's old acquaintance, the 6-star refiner and 9th-rank earth warrior Zhang Kuang. When they arrived at the eastern drill ground, Emperor Zhao Duo first welcomed them as the host, then explained the rules of the competition. Finally, a general was responsible for calling out the names, and the 9 geniuses entered one by one. Zhang Kuang patted Fu Yi's shoulder and smiled. "Kid, do your best. Don't embarrass your teacher. My goal is to be the champion." Fu Yi smiled faintly. Once upon a time, Duan Meng seemed to have said the same thing with incomparable confidence. The tone, the content, and the expression were almost exactly the same. Hell, interesting. Duan Meng felt that this young man's temperament was somewhat similar to his. Yun Fan, who was hiding in the dark, couldn't help but smile. Are all the young people these days so confident? Although the competition hadn't started yet, sparks were already flying between the geniuses. With Fu Yi, Lian Changtian, and Duan Meng as the leaders, the geniuses from 3 different empires were in high spirits. In the last Young Masters tournament, the limelight was completely stolen by that guy Linfeng. I thought it would be our turn to shine in this competition, but I didn't think that his disciple would grow to a level that surpassed us. Yang Rui glanced bitterly at Fu Yi. As the proud daughter of heaven and a genius refiner of the Zhao Empire, she couldn't help but admit that that guy was truly terrifying. Even his disciple was a little terrifying. The rules of the finals were the same as the finals. There were 4 tests: palm fire, materials, technique, and overall. As soon as the competition began, the 9 geniuses began an astonishing battle. Boom! 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 The sounds of flames being ignited rang out from the 9 forging stations at almost the same time. Zhao Duo, Yang Luqing, Fun Yi, and the others all focused their attention on the competition below. The eastern training ground was silent. No one dared to make a sound, afraid of disturbing the group of people. However, this only lasted for a short while before quite a few people became surprised. They glanced back and forth between Fu Yi and Duan Meng. Fun Yi gently exclaimed, "I originally thought that Fu Yi's palm fire had already reached the peak of perfection, where even we couldn't compare to him. I never thought that there would be a genius even younger than him who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. If I remember correctly, the kid's name is Duan Meng, right? His method of mastery is far too similar to Fu Yi's. It's a different approach that achieves the same result. Strange, truly strange. Lian Changtian is not bad either, but compared to Fu Yi and Duan Meng, he's still lacking," nodded Yang Luqing. After a while, the competition ended. Their scores were announced on the spot by Zhao Duo. First place, Fu Yi, 100 points. Second place, Duan Meng, 100 points. Third place, Lian Changtian, 94 points. Fu Yi and Duan Meng looked at each other at almost the same time. They both saw the surprise in each other's eyes. It was as if they never thought that there would be someone else who could achieve the same result as them. Lian Changtian frowned. His heart sank. He never thought that he would lose by 6 points in the first competition. Moreover, he lost to 2 people at the same time. He came here full of confidence. However, in the first competition, he suffered a huge blow. Yang Rui, Qin Ku, and the others all looked at Duan Meng in surprise. They never thought that this young man could achieve the same result as Fu Yi. The competition did not give them much time to be surprised. The second competition started right after the first competition ended. The schedule was tight. However, the 9 geniuses obviously did not need much time to rest. The palm fire competition did not affect them much. The championship is mine. Lien Changtian clenched his fists. The glory of the Lien family must not be destroyed in my hands. Although his great-grandfather Lien Yuntian had said that in this finals, he only needed to be second place. First place would belong to none other than Fu Yi. However, he did not give up. He, Lien Changtian, was the most outstanding genius of the Lien family after Lien Yunfei. How could he be willing to be second place? Soon, the skill competition began in silence. Ding! Lien Yuntian had just raised the casting hammer and did not have time to swing it for the second time when a series of continuous sounds rang in his ears. Ding ding ding, ding ding ding. In the eastern drill ground, 2 young silhouettes, a young man and a teenager, started almost at the same time. One held a casting hammer in his hand, while the other used a spell to control the casting hammer. But the similarity was that their speed was extremely fast, dazzling to the eyes. Moreover, without exception, they all contained a kind of extreme violent beauty. The surrounding people, including the judges and Emperor Zhao Duo, all stood up. Their eyes fell on Duanmeng. They were not surprised that Fu Yi could use such amazing skills. However, they were very surprised that Duanmeng could do the same. The 2 figures seemed to have forgotten the world around them. They were immersed in their own world. The casting hammers flew up and down at an astonishing frequency. It's Lin Feng. This thought involuntarily popped up in their minds. This Duanmeng must be Lin Feng's disciple. Don't forget, skill refining was Lin Feng's unique skill. Although many people tried to learn this style of technique, most of them were similar in form but not in spirit. However, Duanmeng obviously understood the essence of it. His casting obviously had Lin Feng's shadow. This is interesting. A strange smile crept up on Zhao Duo's face. Senior brother and junior brother are participating in the competition at the same time. They are also the champions of the finals and entered the finals at the same time. They both got a full 100 points in the palm fire event. Interesting, very interesting. The surrounding people seemed to have thought of this as well. The corners of their mouths rose into a beautiful arc. They originally thought that there would be no suspense in this competition. However, it seemed that their premature guess was not correct. However, no matter what kind of thoughts they had, in the eastern drill ground, 2 figures, one moving and one quiet, had the same thought. To make up for teacher's regret, this year's championship must be mine. I can't let teacher down. I must get first place. At this moment, the 2 brothers who did not know each other had the same thought in their minds. Chapter 4:14. The Young Masters competition that swept through the entire Cyanwood continent had now become a personal competition between Fu Yi and Duanmeng. Perhaps the rest of the participants were also very outstanding. If they were placed in the previous competition, they might be able to catch the attention of many people. However, they just happened to be born at the wrong time. The refining skills that they relied on the most for their survival were completely defeated by Fu Yi and Duanmeng. The clear and melodious sound seemed to have magic, causing everyone present to have a feeling of enjoyment. The extreme violence, coupled with the pleasant sound, magnified this kind of enjoyment by 10 times, or even 100 times. The intense visual and auditory enjoyment came wave after wave, causing people to be overwhelmed and intoxicated, wishing that they could extend the time. This was a feast for the eyes, and at the same time, a feast for the ears. Ding ding ding, ding ding ding, everyone's gazes were focused on the 2 young figures. One was a young man in his early 20s, and the other was a 17 or 18-year-old youth. Although there was a difference in age, and one was refining with strength while the other was refining with magic, there was a certain similarity between them. If these external factors were to be disregarded, the feeling they gave others was as if they were the same person. Not long after, the youth was the first to stop. Raising his head and looking around, the youth had a faint smile on his face. This round, he won. That's right, Duan Meng finished displaying his refining skills even faster than Fu Yi. Seeing this, almost everyone in the surroundings looked at him in shock. Although they had already guessed that he was Lin Feng's disciple, seeing that he actually surpassed Fu Yi in refining skills, everyone couldn't help but be shocked. After all, Fu Yi was a few years older than Duan Meng. Moreover, he became a disciple of Lin Feng earlier. Originally, in their opinion, Fu Yi should be slightly better than Duan Meng. However, they didn't expect that Duan Meng would surpass Fu Yi instead. Clearly, although Duan Meng's time spent learning refining equipment was shorter than Fu Yi's, his foundation was more solid. Moreover, he was a genius mage. Compared to Fu Yi, who had an ordinary physique, he still had a slight advantage. After about 5 to 6 breaths of time, Fu Yi also stopped. He inadvertently glanced at Duan Meng from the corner of his eyes and frowned slightly. Even though he looked calm on the surface, Fu Yi's heart was surging with waves of shock. He's actually faster than me. If this person was Lin Feng, then Fu Yi would not be surprised. But obviously this was just a youth, an unfamiliar youth from the Han dynasty. It could not be Lin Feng, so he could not help but be surprised. He even had a suspicion, could it be that this little guy is another disciple of teacher? He believed that in the whole world, only his teacher could teach such a disciple. This was the only answer he could accept. When Duan Meng saw that Fu Yi had also finished the competition after him, he was inexplicably surprised. His heart trembled as he thought to himself, "Looks like I can't be careless. Teacher is right. There are countless strange people in the world. I can't underestimate anyone." Fortunately, he was used to doing his best in everything. If he had been slightly careless this time, he might have been overtaken by Fu Yi. Everyone looked at Duan Meng and Fu Yi as if they had not had enough. They could not help but sigh in their hearts. After a long time, some people finally finished their refining equipment. It's only a temporary lead. I can't let my guard down. Duan Meng secretly glanced at Fu Yi. His heart was heavy. Ever since he participated in the Youth Masters tournament, this was the first time he had met someone who could give him so much pressure. It was not hard to imagine that he had already regarded Fu Yi as his biggest opponent in the competition. This little guy is very likely to be a threat to my final target. Fu Yi also squinted his eyes as he sized up Fu Yi. In his heart, he had secretly raised his opponent to the same level as himself. However, no matter what, in their hearts, they were determined to win the championship. Not for themselves, but for their teacher who was known as the world's best craftsman. After a while, the scores of the 9 contestants were announced by Zhao Duo. Duan Meng, 100 points. Fu Yi, 99 points. Lian Chongtian, 88 points. The rest of the contestants only had around 70 points. Not to mention Duan Meng and Fu Yi, even Lian Chongtian's score was more than 10 times higher than theirs. If it were not for Duan Meng and Fu Yi, Lian Chongtian would have been able to take first place and win the championship, standing proudly at the top of this year's Youth Masters tournament. In fact, before the last Youth Masters tournament, a genius like Lian Chongtian could have taken first place in the finals. It was a pity that he had met 2 monsters this time. Lin Feng and Lin Feng's disciple were definitely monsters who could break the balance. Among the 9 geniuses, the remaining 7 were reduced to the background of Duan Meng and Fu Yi. The difference in their scores was enough to prove the difference between them. They no longer held any hope for the championship. Because the championship could only be between Fu Yi and Duan Meng, the only thing they could fight for was the second place. However, there was still a gap between the other 6 geniuses and Lien Changtian. Hence, they did not even dare to hope for the 2nd place, and could only set their sights on the 4th place. Hence, the fight for the 4th place was much more intense. It was as if, in their eyes, the 4th place was like the championship. Getting the 4th place was like winning the championship. Competing with monsters like these, it's impossible to live. They laughed bitterly in their hearts. One of these monsters is already amazing, but there are 2 of them at the same time. There's no way for others to live. Fu Yi looked at Duan Meng seriously, lowered his head silently, and clenched his fists. I must win the next round. If he lost the next round, then the position of champion would be even further away from him. A difference of 1 point is not enough. In the next round, I must increase the difference in points. Otherwise, I will be in even more danger. Duan Meng took a deep breath, his fighting spirit high. After resting for a moment, the material cognition test began. After everyone received their test papers, they looked at the questions. After they finished reading, some of them started to think, while others started to write quickly. Among them, the ones who stood out the most were undoubtedly Fu Yi and Duan Meng. Almost as soon as they saw the questions, they started to write. It was as if the answers to the questions already existed in their hearts. There was no need for them to think at all. They could write down the knowledge in their minds one by one. Although they all have Lin Feng's shadow, they are very different from Lin Feng. Zhang Kuang smacked his lips and chuckled. Zhao Duo asked curiously, "What's the difference?" Yang Luqing, Fun Yi and the rest also looked at Zhang Kuang curiously. They did not know if this hot-tempered fellow could say anything practical. I don't know about anything else, but I know that there's one thing that's definitely different. Zhang Kuang winked and laughed. Lin Feng likes to show off too much. He's always the only focus in every competition, but these 2 don't have this bad habit. When everyone heard this, they all rolled their eyes. Just as Zhang Kuang had said, Lin Feng would always wait until the last moment to make a stunning appearance, breaking everyone's suspicions with a single sentence. On the other hand, Duan Meng and Fu Yi were relatively more reliable, although their performances were still incomparably monstrous, but at least they wouldn't be in the limelight. Their actions were more logical, not much different from the other participants, except that their final results would be more terrifying. Only when the last part of the burning leaf incense had been burned did everyone reluctantly stop writing under Zhao Duo's shout. Although Duan Meng and Fu Yi had finished writing long ago, they did not hand in their papers early. Instead, they repeatedly checked their papers and waited until the end of the time before handing in their papers with everyone else. After handing in their answers, the 2 of them silently paid attention to each other. It was obvious that they viewed each other as their only opponent. After a while, Zhao Duo announced everyone's scores with a slightly strange expression. Fu Yi 100 points. Duan Meng 99 points. Lien Changtian 88 points. This score was almost no different from the score of the skill event. However, Fu Yi and Duan Meng, this pair of senior and junior brothers, were the opposite. The previous 1-point difference was completely filled in this event. The 2 of them were back to square one. Fu Yi let out a sigh of relief. He had finally filled in the 1-point difference. He wiped his sweat. That was close. He looked at Duan Meng. Obviously, Duan Meng's knowledge of materials had also made him have a whole new level of respect for him. After racking his brains, he was only able to fill in the gap between them. He did not surpass the other party as he had expected. Duan Meng, on the other hand, clenched his fists with incomparable self-blame. The score has been filled in. He had lost his only advantage. Everything was back to square one. Too strong. Duan Meng felt boundless pressure. This was the first time he felt such immense pressure since he started learning how to refine weapons. Palm fire ability, refining skills, knowledge of materials, every aspect. He is so strong. He did not have the slightest bit of confidence to win against the other party. To not fall behind was already so difficult. This was something he had not expected. In their eyes, there was only each other's existence left. The other geniuses were not worthy to be their opponents. As for the other 7 geniuses, especially Lien Changtian, their hearts were incomparably sullen. Their hearts were almost trembling. These 2 monstrous geniuses were too strong. Strong to the point that they did not have the slightest bit of resistance. They had always boasted of being geniuses, but bitterly discovered that they were never geniuses. Looking at the score difference between them and Fu Yi and Duan Meng getting bigger and bigger, a deep sense of powerlessness welled up in everyone. After everyone rested for about half an incense's time, the soldiers sent the materials into the competition grounds. At the same time, Zhao Duo also slowly stood up and said, "The last round of the competition, the comprehensive competition. This round is specifically about the quality of the weapons." After announcing the rules of the competition, Zhao Duo's gaze lingered on Fu Yi and Duan Meng for a while before he slowly said, "I hereby announce that the weapon event of the Master Youth Tournament has officially begun." The burning incense was slowly lit. Chapter 4:15. After Zhao Duo announced the start of the competition, no one dared to slack off. They immediately squatted down and lit the fire. Boom, boom, boom. The last sub-event of this year's Youth Masters Tournament began in such a heated atmosphere. Everyone knew how good Fu Yi and Duan Meng were, but Fu Yi and Duan Meng didn't know how good each other was. Both of them were taught by Lin Feng. The first rule of refining in their minds was to be calm. Once they started refining, they had to put all their energy into refining. They had to be absolutely attentive and ignore everything that happened in the outside world. Because of this, they didn't know how good each other was at refining. They could only analyze each other's strength based on the cold data of their scores. "Master, your disciple won't embarrass you." Both of them looked very solemn. With the same belief, they began their journey to compete for the championship. Almost at the same time, the 2 of them finished the fire lighting segment. One of them quickly took out the materials and put them into the furnace, while the other cast a spell to make the materials enter the furnace on their own. Fast, too fast. All the audience and judges stood up. Their eyes moved back and forth between Fu Yi and Duan Meng. Just now, they were separated from each other. Although they were also very surprised, the visual impact was definitely not as strong and soul-stirring as this one. Looking at Fu Yi and Duan Meng, they couldn't help but think of a young figure. Once upon a time, that faint young figure had given them the greatest shock of their lives. It was still unforgettable, and in these 2 geniuses they seemed to see the shadow of that person. It was as if that person was waving a giant hammer and refining a weapon. Of course, in comparison, both Duan Meng and Fu Yi were still a little inexperienced. Although they were much more terrifying than the other geniuses, and could even be called monsters, they were still a little lacking compared to the person in everyone's memories. That person was Lin Feng. He was only in his 20s, but he was already a peerless genius. Suddenly, everyone was filled with nostalgia, and even a little impatience. They still wanted to see Lin Feng refine artifacts, to see the genius that made countless geniuses in the world blush with shame, to see the genius that was said to be unprecedented. Although they knew that this was impossible, they still couldn't help but have such an impulse in their hearts. It was a pity that the genius had left in the finals. An accident had caused the geniuses' journey in the Young Masters Tournament to come to an end. In their days, their gazes were still fixed on Duan Meng and Fu Yi. They could vaguely see Lin Feng's figure. Fu Yi is Lin Feng's disciple without a doubt. That Duan Meng must also be Lin Feng's disciple. Although they didn't have conclusive evidence, they firmly believed this point. The crisp voice made them even more absent-minded. After a long time, Duan Meng was the first to stop. Then, Fu Yi also stopped, unwilling to be left behind. There was only a difference of a few breaths between them. After the two of them stopped, they silently sat down cross-legged and closed their eyes, waiting for the rest of the people. It's over. When Zhao Duo and the others slowly woke up, they discovered that Duan Meng and Fu Yi had already finished refining artifact. Time was brought by the falling snow, and then brought away by the cold wind. It disappeared in the flames and was exhausted with a crisp, tinkling sound. When everyone had finished refining artifacts, Duan Meng and Fu Yi had already waited for an unknown amount of time. They all stood up and stood at their respective forging stations. They silently watched Zhao Duo, Fun Yi, and the others on the high platform, silently calculating their scores in their hearts. In front of everyone, Zhao Duo, Fun Yi, and the other judges measured the quality of the 9 sabers according to a specific order. Taking a deep breath, everyone quietly watched, and then waited for the results to be announced. When everyone's scores were announced, Zhao Duo could not help but be stunned. Only after a long while did he cast a strange gaze towards Duan Meng and Fu Yi. The two of them looked at Zhao Duo in confusion, not understanding why Zhao Duo was looking at them like that. However, they quickly understood the meaning of Zhao Duo's gaze, because Zhao Duo did not make them wait for long. He let out a slight sigh and slowly announced everyone's scores. Fu Yi 190 points. Duan Meng 190 points. Lian Changtian 160 points. When Fu Yi and Duan Meng's scores were announced, not only were they stunned, everyone else was also stunned. Although everyone had guessed that their scores would be very close, no one had thought that their scores would be exactly the same. If there was a difference in the scores of the first 3 competitions, then even if the final score was the same, it wouldn't be a big deal. However, the strange thing was that the two of them had the same total score in the first 3 competitions, and the final score was also the same. Didn't this mean that the two of them had the same total score? The same total score was equal to being tied for first place. 2 champions. Ever since the Youth Masters tournament started, this had never happened before. Generally speaking, the more powerful a genius was, the greater the gap between them. There was once a genius who said, "You scored 97 points because your limit is only 97 points, but I scored 100 points because the total score of the paper is only 100 points. That was why everyone was so shocked. I didn't think that we would encounter the first tie in history." The crowd did not know whether to be happy or sad. Time did not stop, and Zhao Duo soon announced everyone's scores. Finally, Zhao Duo calculated everyone's total score and announced slowly, "There is no second place in this tournament, because there are 2 contestants who have tied for first place, and they are Fu Yi and Duan Meng. First place, Fu Yi and Duan Meng, 489 points in the final. Third place, Lian Changtian, 430 points in the final. Fourth place." No one paid attention to the scores of the other geniuses, because everyone's attention was on Duan Meng and Fu Yi. They had imagined countless results, but they did not expect that Fu Yi and Duan Meng would get the same score, and their scores were amazing. Only 11 points were deducted from the total score of 500 points. Other than the monster in the last Youth Masters tournament, this score was the highest in history. There were only a few people who could surpass them in the history of the Youth Masters tournament, and all of them were close to 30 years old, which was much older than them. Of course, Lin Feng was an exception. When Duan Meng and Fu Yi heard the result, they looked at each other with complicated expressions. They did not know if they had succeeded, or if they had succeeded halfway. Although they were the champion, they had to share it with another person. It was not a good feeling. "Teacher, I'm sorry, we tried our best." They looked apologetic and self-reproachful. After a long while, the crowd slowly came back to their senses. The competition was over. Although the result was a little dramatic, the process was undeniably exciting. Fu Yi walked towards Duan Meng slowly and said seriously, I look forward to fighting with you next time. Me too. Duan Meng did not back down. Turning around, the corners of Fu Yi's mouth held a wisp of bitterness, and a wisp of sadness appeared between his brows. A faint figure appeared in his mind. I'm sorry, teacher. Disciple has failed to live up to your expectations. However, his heavy footsteps became even more firm. The competition was over. However, just as Duan Meng was about to leave, a huge figure descended from the sky. Kid, don't be in a hurry to leave. That huge figure stopped in front of Duan Meng almost in the blink of an eye, blocking Duan Meng's way. Looking closely, it was actually an incomparably huge bird. It seemed to be a legendary demonic beast. Moreover, it was definitely an extremely terrifying and powerful demonic beast. Duan Meng's body trembled, but he forced himself to calm down. He took a deep breath and said, Who are you? He did not know, but the others knew. No, how come you're back? Did you find Mr. Lin? Zhao Duo asked impatiently. That's right, this huge bird was Nono. Nono's body shrank rapidly until it was about the size of an ordinary eagle. Only then did it stop shrinking. Then, it rolled its eyes at Zhao Duo. Don't worry, boss is doing very well. He was the one who asked me to come back and chat with this kid. Duan Meng pointed at himself and said in a scared and doubtful voice, Me? Of course it's you. Nono turned around and looked at Duan Meng. Don't worry, you're my boss's disciple, I won't hurt you. Duan Meng was shocked. Your boss is my teacher? Nono said, Yes, my boss is Lin Feng, your teacher. It's true, everyone in the world knows this. If you don't believe me, you can ask them. While speaking, it pointed at the people around. Hearing this, Duan Meng looked around and sure enough, everyone nodded. Before Duan Meng said anything, Nono continued, Kid, my boss asked me to tell you that you don't have to go back to him. He's gone, and I don't know where he went. Duan Meng was reluctant. Why did he leave? It's because of you. Nono said, because two powerful enemies have been looking for my boss. Once my boss shows up, he may be ambushed by them. My boss is not their match yet, so he can't reveal his location. You'll definitely attract a lot of attention if you participate in the Young Masters competition, because my boss taught you how to refine weapons. Anyone who has seen my boss refine weapons will be able to guess the relationship between you and my boss. So if they follow your information, they'll be able to find my boss. After talking for a long time, Nono stared at Duan Meng. Do you understand now? Duan Meng nodded and then asked worriedly, Will my master be in danger? While speaking, he blamed himself. If I knew this, I wouldn't have participated in the Young Masters competition. Don't worry too much. With my boss's ability, his enemies won't be able to find him in a short time. Nono comforted him and then looked at Fu Yi. Oh right, that's your senior brother over there. He's also my boss's disciple. Duan Meng followed Nono's gaze and then said in surprise, So he's my senior brother. Fu Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I didn't expect you to be my junior brother. Everyone in the surroundings had the urge to vomit blood at this moment. Those who knew the truth were fine, but those who didn't were really dumbfounded. Moreover, even those who knew the truth were only guessing at first. Now, their guesses were confirmed. The two champions of the Young Masters tournament that encompassed the entire Greenwood continent are actually both Lord Lin's disciples. The disciples that I trained with my blood and sweat could only barely rank at the end of the finals, while Master Lin's two disciples are fighting for the championship. No matter who wins in the end, Master Lin's disciples will definitely win. This is too ridiculous. The Young Masters competition with hundreds of thousands, even millions of participants, has become the championship of Master Lin's disciples. Is it really necessary to bully people like this? If anyone was to blame, they could only blame Duan Meng and Fu Yi for being so outstanding. Chapter 4:16. This was a primeval forest. Majestic mountains stretched for hundreds of kilometers, and rivers flowed rapidly between the mountains. This was the home of the monsters. Without the permission of the forest's owner, even human Earth saints dared not enter. This was the location of the Earth-Sea Cavern. On the other side of the cavern was a world of opportunity and risk. Outside this huge mansion stood a large group of people, as well as even more demonic beasts. Every person or monster exuded a terrifying aura. Even the weakest one was a ninth-stage powerhouse. If placed in the outer area of the monster forest or near the inner area, they would be the only masters. Time passed slowly. 3 years had passed since Lin Feng, Mo Qiong, Mother Zhang, and the others parted in Qing Luan City. Today was the opening day of the Earth-Sea Cavern. When Shi Jingting, Mo Qiong, Mother Zhang, and Zi Shui, the 3 human Earth Saints and the 2 demon Earth Saints, had gathered here. Aside from Jingting, each of them had brought 10 Supremes or 9th-level powerhouses with them. The groups were clearly divided, and all of them stared at the mansion in front of them with burning eyes. There was a hint of greed or desire in their eyes. The remaining 7 families of the 8 great families also had people present. The leaders of each family were Supremes, and behind them were several 9th-stage powerhouses. Other than the Earth Saints and the 7 families, there was also a mixed team of 30 Supremes and 9th-stage powerhouses from Qingfeng College led by Black Mi, Du Tong, and Sha Xing. Why isn't he here yet? Jing Ting couldn't help but worry under her white veil. As if knowing what she was thinking, Black Mi asked Jing Ting, "No, why isn't Lin Feng here yet? Are you sure he'll come today?" Nono lay on Lin Yun's shoulder and said casually, "Don't worry. Boss is rushing here. He's already at the outer area of the monster forest. He'll be here soon." Hearing this, Mo Qiong snorted. "Amir Supremes wants all of us to wait for him. How dare he?" Tsk. Nono was not afraid of anything and retorted, "Who told you to wait? Who forced you? If you're not willing to wait, you can scram. It doesn't matter whether you're here or not." "You." Mo Qiong gnashed his teeth in anger. His face was extremely gloomy. "Don't think that I won't dare to touch you just because you have 3 Earth Saints protecting you. Even if the 3 of them join forces, they might not be a match for me." At this moment, Blood Violet interjected, "Mo Qiong, if you touch it, then I'll touch you." Mo Qiong's eyes turned cold as he stared at Purple Blood. "What do you mean?" Blood Violet pursed her lips and stroked her devilish purple hair. She said calmly, "If you want to deal with Lin Feng, this saint can turn a blind eye. But if you want to deal with him, this saint will not agree. If you touch even one of its feathers, I will chew you to pieces. Do you believe me?" No one knew why Purple Blood was so interested in the Nono. Everyone was guessing what kind of relationship he had with the Nono. In the Xingfeng Plain, aside from this person in the monster forest, Purple Blood could be said to be invincible. Even when she was slightly inferior to him, no one dared to doubt the truth of her words because she did have the ability to chew a human Earth Saint to pieces. Nono glanced at Blood Violet in confusion. However, when he remembered that this fellow was the culprit behind the destruction of his boss' hometown, the trace of gratitude that had just appeared in his heart disappeared. He was still thinking about when he was strong enough to kill this purple-haired demonic youth and avenge his boss' hometown. Clearly, Purple Blood's good intentions were in vain. Mother Zhang narrowed her eyes and quietly glanced at Nono. She seemed to be thinking about something. "If I can't touch this Nono, I can at least touch Lin Feng, right?" she thought. As for Mo Qiong, although he had lost face, he didn't dare to talk back to Purple Blood. He could only snort and turn his head away, no longer fighting with Nono. He didn't dare to ignore Purple Blood's threat. After a while, a small black dot appeared in the distance. In a breath's time, this small black dot grew bigger and bigger. It appeared in the sky above everyone and slowly descended. Lin Feng, you're finally here, Black Me said with a smile. Poison Eye, kill, and the others also looked at Lin Feng. Huang Wenbing and Lin Yun stood together and sighed in relief. Behind them were Qingfeng College's fluttering Snow Supremacy, Carefree Supremacy, and the others. Seeing Lin Feng arrive, Carefree Supremacy, Fluttering Snow Supremacy, and the others smiled. Their eyes were filled with emotion. Lin Feng stopped beside Black Me and said with a smile, "Sorry to keep you waiting." After that, he looked at Huang Wenbing and Lin Yun and said in surprise, "Why are you here?" Huang Wenbing chuckled, "How can we miss out on such a good thing?" "Brother, don't worry. With our current strength, as long as we're careful, we should have no problem protecting ourselves," Lin Yun said confidently. Lin Feng was even more surprised. He carefully sensed their auras and was instantly shocked. "You've already become high-level supremacies?" God, he had only been separated from them for a little more than 2 years, but they, a primary-level supremacy and a middle-level supremacy, had both broken through to high-level supremacy. Wasn't this speed a little too fast? If Lin Feng remembered correctly, this speed seemed to have never appeared in the history of the Greenwood continent. "Don't talk about us. Didn't you break through to middle-level supremacy yourself?" Huang Wenbing said enviously. "When you were still a primary-level supremacy, you were already evenly matched with the ice dragon of the Southern Sea. Now that you're a middle-level supremacy, doesn't that mean that the ice dragon of the Southern Sea is no longer your opponent?" Humph! A faint cold snort came from behind Earth Holy Mother Zhang. They turned their gazes and caught a glimpse of a man in white who was half human and half dragon. Based on his aura, Lin Feng immediately confirmed this guy's identity. He was definitely the ice dragon of the Southern Sea. "We'll only know who wins and who loses after the battle." Lin Feng smiled faintly. "Although I've made some progress, the ice dragon of the Southern Sea seems to have comprehended something in that battle. It seems that he has comprehended the key to becoming an Earth Holy Mother Zhang. Now that he can transform into a half-human and half-dragon, he must be half an Earth Holy Mother Zhang. Don't underestimate him." Although he said so, Lin Feng's tone was incomparably relaxed. A strong confidence seeped into his bones. However, when Lin Feng finished speaking, he caught a faint trace of joy. It didn't come from Lin Yun, Huang Wenbing, and the others, but from another place. Following that faint feeling, he saw a woman wearing a white veil. As if she had done something wrong, she hurriedly lowered her head, not daring to meet Lin Feng's eyes. That person was the human primary Earth Holy Mother Zhang, Jing Ting. She was also the only female Earth Holy Mother Zhang of the Xingfeng Plain. "It's her?" Lin Feng had already vaguely guessed Jing Ting's identity. However, he was very puzzled. Every time he saw Jing Ting, he had a faint feeling that she was paying attention to him. He didn't know if it was his own misconception. With a self-deprecating smile, Lin Feng couldn't help but shake his head. "Maybe I'm just overthinking things?" As the only female Earth Holy Mother Zhang of the Xingfeng Plain, Jing Ting was absolutely a proud daughter of heaven. Why would such a high and lofty existence pay special attention to him? Of course, Jing Ting had helped him twice. He remembered this clearly in his heart and didn't dare to forget. The first time was in the Great Qin Empire. Jing Ting had helped him clearly understand the mixed laws he had comprehended, pushing aside the fog in front of him and allowing him to continue walking down the path of laws. The second time was in Qin Luan City at the eastern edge of the Han Dynasty. Jing Ting and one she had stood by his side, supporting him from the threat of Mother Zhang and Mo Qiong. "Lord Black Rice," Lin Feng whispered into Black Rice's ear. "After we enter the Earth-Sea Cave abode, if there's a chance, I hope you can help Earth Holy Mother Jing Ting." He had heard of Jing Ting's situation before, so he hoped to help her and repay the favor. Before Black Rice could speak, Shashing spoke first. He chuckled and said, "Lin Feng, tell us honestly, is Jing Ting your woman?" Poison Eye was as straightforward as ever. Nonsense, of course she is. Lin Feng didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at the two. Unexpectedly, even the usually serious Black Rice couldn't help but look at Lin Feng with an ambiguous expression. Let me say this first. If she's not your woman, we won't help her. You know that it's very dangerous inside. We have no interest in helping a stranger. However, his last sentence was the main point. Of course, if she's your woman, then it's a different story. Cough cough. Lin Feng almost choked. After a long while, he said with a defeated expression, "All right, then you can treat her as my woman." However, when Lin Feng said this, he didn't see that under the veil, the woman's fair face was so red that it was about to drip water. If Lin Feng knew that they were eavesdropping, he probably wouldn't have said such a thing even if he was beaten to death. On the other side, Earth Saint Mother Zhang and Ice Dragon of the Southern Sea were also secretly communicating. This Lin Feng is growing too fast. In just 3 years, he's already made me feel threatened. If we don't get rid of this person, we won't be able to eat or sleep in peace. Mother Zhang's gaze was bone-chilling. Her voice was even colder. With that person from the demonic beast forest around, we don't dare to make a move on Lin Feng. That Lin Feng is also very smart. He's been avoiding us, not giving us an excuse to make a move. Therefore, entering the Earth-Sea cavern dwelling is our only chance to kill him. Remember, once you enter, immediately break through your cultivation. As long as you become an Earth Saint, that Lin Feng won't be able to fight back. The Earth Saints went to the High Central District, while the Supremes and Ninth Stage powerhouses went to the Low Central District. Therefore, even if Mother Zhang wanted to kill Lin Feng, she had no chance. The only chance was Ice Dragon of the Southern Sea. This was because Ice Dragon of the Southern Sea had already comprehended the Earth Saint law. As long as he was willing, he could break through to the low Earth Saint level at any time. Don't worry, madam. This time, I won't let Lin Feng come out alive. Ice Dragon of the Southern Sea narrowed his eyes. Mother Zhang nodded and said, "This time, I'll have to trouble you to suppress your cultivation to the limit of the Supremes. When the Earth-Sea cavern dwelling opens next time, I'll help you refine as much Saint Spirit energy as possible." Ice Dragon of the Southern Sea smiled. "Thank you, madam. This was a conspiracy against Lin Feng." Chapter 4:17. Although Heimi and the others didn't know what Mother Zhang and the Ice Dragon were plotting, they were sure that they wouldn't let Lin Feng go so easily. If they wanted to deal with Lin Feng, the best time to do so would be after they entered the Earth-Sea cave abode. "Lin Feng, you'd better be careful. I suspect that the Ice Dragon's cultivation isn't as simple as it seems," Heimi reminded. Lin Feng glanced at the Ice Dragon and nodded. "I'll be careful." The Ice Dragon wanted to kill him, and he wanted to kill him too. However, it was still hard to say who would be the one to kill who. If the Ice Dragon knew about Lin Feng's current strength, he wouldn't be so confident. In 3 years, Lin Feng had become a mid-level supreme being. It seemed fast, but it wasn't. Lin Feng had a powerful spirit power. Under the control of his spirit power, he was able to absorb and refine all of the earth elements into his body. This was an advantage that no one else had. Although his talent had evolved a few times, he could only be considered an ordinary genius. There were countless people who were more powerful than him. However, the gap between the spirit power and the yuan power of the others was not that big. Therefore, it was impossible for them to use their spirit power to increase their cultivation. Lin Feng was an exception. He could also be considered a freak. From the beginning to the end, he was an anomaly. In addition to his cultivation reaching mid-level supreme being, Lin Feng's understanding of the time law and the strength law had increased by 5%. This was Lin Feng's biggest advantage. Now, Lin Feng had comprehended 20% of the amplitude law and the time law, 15% of the strength law and the space law, and 10% of the life law, the soul law, and the gravity law. Compared to when he fought the ice dragon of the South Sea, Lin Feng's strength had improved greatly in all aspects. His law of amplitude, law of time, and law of strength had all improved. The might of Earth's wrath and Heaven's wrath had increased by more than 2 times. His physical body had also been strengthened to the level of a supreme being. Coupled with the multifold increase in his origin energy, Lin Feng's battle prowess had increased by more than 10 times. The original Lin Feng could injure a beginner Earth Saint. Now that he was 10 times stronger, why would he be afraid of the ice dragon of the Southern Sea? Even if he faced Mother Zhang, Lin Feng was confident that he could defeat her. What was there to be afraid of? Even if he didn't provoke me, I would have taken the initiative to find him. Lin Feng slowly retracted his gaze. Between him and me, only one of us can survive. Lin Feng and the ice dragon of the South Sea were both aware of this. Among all the people present, there were only 2 people that Lin Feng was wary of. One was the purple blood sacred beast, and the other was Wen Shi. Facing these 2 mid-grade Earth Saints, Lin Feng had no confidence at all. He even had a feeling that if either of them were to attack, he wouldn't be able to resist at all. The difference between a mid-grade Earth Saint and a beginner Earth Saint was too big. Moreover, Lin Feng had a feeling that purple blood was more dangerous and terrifying than Wen Shi. That demonic youth seemed to have a terrifying power hidden within his body. Once it exploded, even Wen Shi might not be able to withstand it. He didn't have any evidence, but his intuition was very strong. Purple blood was someone that he couldn't provoke for the time being. Perhaps sensing Lin Feng's gaze, purple blood slowly turned his head and grinned at Lin Feng. His white teeth flashed with a cold light. "Is everyone here?" An old voice sounded in everyone's ears. Whether it was purple blood, Wen Shi, Jing Ting, Mother Zhang, or the surrounding supreme beings and 9th stage powerhouses, they all lowered their heads and bowed towards the source of the voice. They said respectfully, "Greetings, Lord Greenwood." It's him, the senior who appeared for a brief moment in Zhao Country's capital. Sha Xing's heart trembled. Even the expressionless Poison Eye had a trace of fear in his eyes. An old figure slowly walked over from the side of the mansion. The surrounding people all respectfully stepped aside and bowed, not daring to show any disrespect. The old man didn't have the temperament of an expert. Instead, he looked like an old man from next door. He was kind, friendly, and had a faint smile on his face. "Since you're ready, follow me in." Greenwood looked around. His gaze paused on Lin Feng and Nono for a moment, then he smiled and walked into the mansion. Lin Feng silently followed behind Greenwood. He was shocked, too powerful. Even an arrogant person like Purple Blood and a veteran mid-level supreme being, like Wen Shi, were obedient in front of Greenwood. It was hard to imagine how terrifying Greenwood was. After entering the mansion, Greenwood waved at the Earth Saints. As usual, this 9-star heavenly light formation requires 9 Earth Saints to work together to open it. "The 8 of you, come here." Purple Blood and the others excitedly walked forward and stood at a corner of the 9-star heavenly light formation. Black Me, Poison Eye, and Sha Xing nodded at Lin Feng and walked over. Before the opening of the Earth and Sea Cave, I'll repeat myself once more. Sovereigns and 9th-grade powerhouses can only enter the Middle Central District. If you rashly charge into the High Central District's passageway, you will definitely be torn apart by the spatial turbulence. As for Earth Saint powerhouses, they can only enter the High Central District. Once you enter the Middle Central District's passageway, your own strength will destroy it, and you will be forever trapped in the Earth and Sea Cave. Greenwood slowly said, "Don't take any chances." Many people have used their lives to prove this point. Everyone nodded solemnly. They obviously wouldn't joke around with their lives. "Okay, let's begin." Send your strength to the 9-star heavenly light formation, Greenwood said indifferently. Purple blood when she, Black me, Poison Eye, and the others didn't dare to hesitate. They immediately sent their strength into the formation. With the strength of the 9 Earth Saints and Greenwood's strength as the lead, the 9-star heavenly light formation suddenly emitted a dazzling white light. But in an instant it dimmed again. 2 pitch-black holes appeared in everyone's sight. The holes were like black holes, causing the surrounding space to constantly distort. The surrounding light was also bent and sucked in. Greenwood said, "The one on the left is the middle level, and the one on the right is the middle level. You only have 1 month. Whether you come out within a month or not, the passage will automatically close." After he finished speaking, he walked outside. "You all can go in yourselves. I will come back in a month." After he finished speaking, his figure had already disappeared. "Let's go." Many Supreme Beings and 9th-rank experts immediately rushed into the pitch-black hole on the left. Ice Dragon of the South Sea also led a group of monsters into the hole on the left. Before he left, he took a deep look at Lin Feng. There was a hint of provocation in his eyes. He was trying to infuriate Lin Feng. Purple Blood Demon Sage couldn't wait to enter the pitch-black hole on the right. When she, Mother Zhang, and Emo Cheong followed in a line. "Be careful of Ice Dragon of the South Sea." Black Me patted Lin Feng's shoulder and nodded to Poison Eye and Kill. The 3 of them entered the middle-level passage one after another. Only Lin Feng, Huang Wenbing, Lin Yun, Nono, and the group of people from Qingfeng College remained outside. Other than them, there was also an Earth Saint, Jing Ting. Jing Ting hesitated for a moment. Then, she walked towards Lin Feng and said softly, "Ice Dragon of the South Sea is likely to break through to the elementary Earth Saint realm at any time. After you go in, try not to fight him head-on." After saying that, she turned and walked into the middle-level passage, leaving behind a natural fragrance that lingered around Lin Feng's nose. "Boss, and you said there's nothing between you two?" Nono glared at him. "Boss, you can even subdue an Earth Saint realm expert. I'm impressed." Huang Wenbing looked at Lin Feng with admiration. "Brother, did Senior Jing Ting really become my sister-in-law?" Lin Yun asked in shock. Unfettered Prime, Star Sovereign, and the others also looked at Lin Feng with a faint smile. Now, Lin Feng couldn't clear his name even if he jumped into the Yellow River. Lin Feng was stunned for a moment. Then, he glared at them and said, "Are you guys going in or not? If you're not going in, then I'm leaving." Tisk tsk, does this count as getting angry out of embarrassment? Huang Wenbing laughed loudly. Lin Yun, Nono, Unfettered Prime, Star Sovereign, and the others couldn't help but laugh. Even Snowflake Prime couldn't help but smile. Seeing that Lin Feng had decisively entered the middle school area, Lin Yun, Huang Wenbing, and the others quickly followed. Obviously, they were very familiar with Lin Feng's strength. Following by Lin Feng's side would always bring them less danger and more benefit. This was an endless stretch of ruins. There were broken walls everywhere. There were no flowers, trees, or green lakes. There were only countless crisscrossing cracks in the ground that meandered for thousands of kilometers. This place was lifeless, like a bottomless pool of water. The surroundings were silent, so silent that it made one's hair stand on end. The aura in the surroundings was extremely strange, and it made one's hair stand on end. A glowing sphere similar to the sun hung high in the sky. Its red light made the ground look like a red world. In the distance, a sphere that looked like the moon was emitting a faint white light. It was opposite the sun, reflecting each other's radiance. This was the Earth-Sea Cave abode. In other words, it was the world in the alternate space where billions of Earth Saints were buried. At the edge of a precipitous cliff, Lin Feng's group walked out one after another. "Follow me closely and don't be careless," Lin Feng reminded them solemnly. "This place is too strange, I don't have the confidence to get out of here alive." Although Lin Feng's strength was very strong, If they were unlucky and encountered a few high-level Earth Saint souls, they would be doomed. Even if a high-level Earth Saint soul was incomplete, it still had the combat strength of a mid-level Earth Saint. Everyone nodded seriously, not daring to joke about this matter. I didn't expect all these humans to follow you. But that's good. I don't have to search everywhere. A familiar and arrogant voice came from the opposite mountain. Lin Feng, I've been waiting for you for a long time. Lin Feng raised his head and narrowed his eyes. Ice Dragon of the Southern Sea. The man and the dragon looked at each other from afar. The atmosphere became tense, and a battle was about to break out. The Ice Dragon of the Southern Sea looked at Lin Feng coldly. I could have broken through, but in order to kill you, I gave up the opportunity to enter the high school area. It was only after I entered the middle school area that I broke through to the Earth Saint realm. Lin Feng, you should feel honored to die in the hands of an Earth Saint Ice Dragon. Huang Wenbing, Lin Yun, the unfettered supremacy, and the others felt their hearts sink to the bottom when they heard this. The Ice Dragon of the Southern Sea had indeed broken through to the initial level Earth Saint realm. Chapter 4:18. Do you think you've got me? Lin Feng calmly looked at the Ice Dragon. The Ice Dragon didn't care at all, thinking that Lin Feng was just bluffing. He smiled faintly. It's not what I think, it's the truth. The current me can even fight Mother Zhang. Although I've just entered the initial stage of the Earth Saint realm, I can still barely contend with an experienced initial stage Earth Saint. You'll never understand the difference between a sovereign and an Earth Saint. Believe it or not, I only need one move to kill you. There was no doubt about the strength of an Earth Saint, and a divine beast initial Earth Saint was even more terrifying. The fact that the Ice Dragon of the Southern Sea had the strength to contend with a veteran initial Earth Saint was enough to prove how terrifying it was. Huang Wenbing, Lin Yun, Unfettered Sovereign, Snowflake Sovereign, and the others had gloomy expressions. They knew that the Ice Dragon wasn't bluffing. He really did have the strength to do so. The strength of an Earth Saint was unimaginable. Just the thought of comprehending a type of law was enough to make one's heart tremble. Should we run? Star Sovereign, Unfettered Sovereign, and the others looked at each other, then their gazes swept past Lin Feng. Indeed, they were only friends with Lin Feng at most. It wasn't worth it to lose their lives for him. However, if they ran away just like that, how different would they be from traitors? They really couldn't do something like running away when things weren't going well. Taking a deep breath, Unfettered Sovereign said, "Everyone, let's attack together. Many ants can bite an elephant to death. If you want to kill us, you'll have to pay a price." Snowflake Sovereign, Star Sovereign, and the others nodded with heavy hearts. It was useless to say anything now. They could only fight with their lives on the line. Us too, Lin Yun and Huang Wenbing said in unison. Don't forget that the two of them had also broken through to the high-level Supremes, and their fighting strength was equally terrifying. Huang Wenbing cultivated one of the 7 supreme laws, the Law of Strength, which was almost the same as the Unfettered Supremes. As for Lin Yun, he had already touched the threshold of the Supreme's limit. Although he didn't cultivate the supreme laws, his fighting strength wasn't inferior in any way. If he could break through the barrier and cross over to the Supreme's limit, his fighting strength would increase exponentially. Nono looked at Lin Feng, then at the others, and said slowly, "Do you have to be in such a hurry?" Huang Wenbing frowned. "No, now is not the time for jokes. Sigh, you guys." Nono shook his head leisurely. "You're underestimating my boss." The Unfettered Sovereign stared blankly for a moment before asking anxiously, "What do you mean? You only know that the Ice Dragon of the South Sea is strong, but you don't know how strong my boss is." Nono chuckled. "Let me tell you, my boss's strength is definitely beyond your imagination. That Ice Dragon of the South Sea may not be my boss's match. He had formed an equal contract with Linfeng, so he could more or less sense Linfeng's strength. Although it was just a little, it was enough for him to maintain his confidence in Linfeng. Moreover, Linfeng's expression didn't change from the beginning to the end. This was undoubtedly a display of confidence. Linfeng didn't have the slightest bit of fear when facing a divine beast of the first-level Earth Saint realm. Presumably, even if Linfeng wasn't as strong as the ice dragon of the South Sea, he wouldn't be too far off. The unfettered sovereign glanced at Linfeng and sensed Linfeng's cultivation. He was sure that Linfeng was a mid-level Supremes. A mid-level Supremes can contend with a first-level Earth Saint? Moreover, the ice dragon of the South Sea is a divine beast of the first-level Earth Saint realm. The little demon sovereign had no confidence at all. It wasn't that he didn't want to believe it, but that it was too unbelievable. It was simply a miracle, and he couldn't convince himself. Fluttering Snow Sovereign, Star Sovereign, Lin Yun, Huang Wenbing, and the others were the same. There was a trace of doubt in their eyes. Nono was flustered and exasperated. The great Nono has never lied. If I say my boss can do it, then my boss can definitely do it. Just you wait. Keep your eyes open. Boss will definitely give you a big surprise later. Huang Wenbing only thought that Nono was comforting them. He smiled bitterly and said, "All right, we'll wait and see." Of course, he also hoped that Linfeng would have the strength to contend with the ice dragon of the South Sea, but it was simply impossible. Even the founder of the 8 great clans, war god Xingfeng, couldn't contend with a first-level Earth Saint expert when he was a mid-level Supremes. "Have you finished discussing?" The ice dragon of the South Sea looked at them mockingly. "Are you going to come one by one, or together?" The confidence in his words was incomparably strong. A group of Supremes was no different from chickens and dogs in his eyes. What was there to be afraid of? Without waiting for Huang Wenbing and the others to speak, Linfeng said indifferently, "I alone am enough to deal with you." Ha ha ha. The ice dragon of the South Sea laughed arrogantly. His eyes were full of contempt. "You? A mid-level Supremes?" Although Linfeng's ability to fight above his level had shocked him, it was no different from a fool's dream for a mid-level Supremes to contend with a first-level Earth Saint. How could he put Linfeng in his eyes? "Looks like you still don't understand the difference between a Supremes and an Earth Saint. Since that's the case, I'll let you have a good taste of the power of a first-level Earth Saint." As his voice fell, a terrifying aura erupted from the ice dragon of the South Sea, instantly sweeping the surroundings. Unfettered Supremes, Fluttering Snow Sovereign, Star Sovereign, Huang Wenbing, Lin Yun, and the others were suppressed by this aura to the point that they couldn't move. The difference was too great. Too strong. The faces of unfettered Supremes and the others turned ugly. Originally, they thought that if they all joined forces, they would still have a chance of survival. But now, it seemed like they had no chance of survival at all. Perhaps in the eyes of the ice dragon of the South Sea, they were no different from ants that could be killed with a slap. Is this the power of a first-level Earth Saint? A faint voice woke everyone up. Although they couldn't turn their heads to look, they knew very well that this voice came from Linfeng. Linfeng didn't seem to be affected at all. He slowly raised his head and calmly looked at the ice dragon of the South Sea. "This power doesn't seem to be that great." "What?" The ice dragon of the South Sea's face changed. He said in shock, "You're not affected at all. How is this possible?" This was the aura of a first-level Earth Saint. Moreover, it was at the level of a divine beast. Not to mention a mere mid-level Earth Saint, even a peak Supremes would be suppressed to the point that they couldn't move. However, Linfeng wasn't affected at all. How could the ice dragon of the South Sea not be shocked? Linfeng waved his hand and instantly broke the aura that had locked onto unfettered Supremes, Huang Wenbing, and the others. He said indifferently, "Are you surprised?" He continued, "Something even more surprising is going to happen next." Linfeng, don't think that you can defeat me just because you broke my aura. The ice dragon of the South Sea sneered. Although I don't know what method you used to break my aura, a first-level Earth Saint will always be a first-level Earth Saint. I can easily kill you with a single finger. Unfettered Supremes, Huang Wenbing, and the others looked at Linfeng in shock. Suddenly, they felt a little more confident in Linfeng. Recalling Nono's words, they started to believe that Linfeng might really be able to contend against the ice dragon of the South Sea. At this moment, the ice dragon of the South Sea threw a punch at Linfeng. He said coldly, "Die! Countercurrent! Earth's fury!" Linfeng's movements weren't any slower than the ice dragon of the South Sea. The moment the ice dragon of the South Sea made his move, Linfeng also used a law technique. With the physical body of a peak Supremes, the Yuan energy of a mid-level Supremes, and the Yuan energy of a 3-patterned Supreme King artifact and 3-patterned Supreme King armor, as well as his powerful battle awareness, the current Linfeng was unprecedentedly powerful. An ordinary punch was comparable to an ordinary Earth Saint's. When he used a law technique, it was even stronger than a first-level Earth Saint's. He was infinitely close to a mid-level Earth Saint. Boom! The ice dragon of the Southern Sea's speed had reached its peak. In terms of pure speed, it was much more terrifying than Linfeng's. However, Linfeng was not too bad himself. His law technique, reverse flow, allowed him to possess an extreme speed that was not any weaker than a veteran Earth Saint. In comparison, he was actually ahead above the ice dragon of the Southern Sea. Under such speed, both sides could not avoid it, and could only face it head-on. Crack! In the next moment, the ice dragon of the South Sea was blasted back as if he had been hit by a train. The skin on his arm was lacerated, and the bones in his fist were broken. Even with the ice dragon of the South Sea's strong physical body, he couldn't withstand Linfeng's punch. The power was unimaginable. Ah! The ice dragon of the South Sea cried out in pain. He was sweating profusely. Linfeng took a step forward and his body flashed. He turned into a ray of light and chased after the ice dragon of the South Sea. Countercurrent! Earth's fury! His speed was so fast that the ice dragon of the South Sea couldn't react at all. The punch landed on his chest, causing the surrounding space to crack open like a spider web. You're clearly not an Earth Saint. Why? Before the ice dragon of the South Sea could finish his sentence, he spat out a mouthful of blood. His organs exploded and he died. His corpse instantly turned from a human to its original form. It was a crystal-clear ice dragon. However, this ice dragon of the South Sea was covered in wounds and had lost all signs of life. Who said that an Earth Saint is definitely more powerful than a Prime? Linfeng put the ice dragon of the South Sea's corpse into his infinite space ring and shook his head. I don't think so. Obviously, he had used facts to prove his point. A first-level Earth Saint of the Divine Beast level couldn't even withstand 2 punches from him. With such strength, he was obviously very close to a mid-level Earth Saint. Presumably, even Mother Zhang would be no match for him, let alone a first-level Earth Saint of the human race, Mo Qiong. Now, I finally have the power to protect myself. Linfeng smiled. This battle had established his supreme status in the Wind Punishment Plane. His strength was only second to the mysterious Elder Qing Mu of the Monster Forest, Purple Blood Overlord, and Wenxi. Not far away, Huang Wenbing, Lin Yun, the Unfettered Exalt, the Star Exalt, the Snowdrift Exalt, and the others seemed to have been frozen in place, and they were dumbfounded. A first-level Earth Saint of the Divine Beast level was killed by 2 punches from a mid-level Prime. My friend's sister, my friend's brother-in-law, and I suffered external injuries. The muscles and skin on our hands and feet were rotten. My friend's sister was disfigured, and a piece of my face was also rotten. You could say that I was disfigured. Below my eye, this piece is still swollen. My friend's brother-in-law had multiple fractures all over his body, and his sternum had pierced into his internal organs. He was in the intensive care unit for emergency treatment, and it took him 5 days to get out of danger. He still can't move even now. I was discharged from the hospital last week. At that time, I didn't want everyone to worry, but I was also afraid that everyone would be disappointed and think that I was a eunuch, so I endured the pain and wrote 4 chapters. I didn't explain to everyone what happened, and as a result, the injury on my hand worsened. The next day, I had to go to the hospital to change the dressing and bandage it. The doctor told me that I couldn't write for a week, or else I wouldn't be able to recover for a month. It wasn't until today that I was barely able to write. I can only try my best to keep updating for now, and I'll update again when I'm better. Chapter 419. The Ice Dragon's corpse is an incredible treasure. Lin Feng smiled. He was very satisfied with his harvest this time. Not only did he get rid of a threat, but he also obtained the corpse of an ice dragon. The ice dragon's body was full of treasures, especially its horn. It was a near-perfect material. If it was used to refine weapons, it would probably be able to refine a weapon very close to a sacred artifact. The ice dragon's scales and bones could also be used to refine armors, wrist guards, and so on. Such armors and wrist guards would definitely have incredible defensive power. Thinking about the ice dragon's defensive power, even as an opponent, Lin Feng had to admit that the ice dragon's defense was indeed very strong. Only then did everyone come back to their senses. The ice dragon of the southern sea died just like that? Xiaoyao's supremacy asked. Huang Wenbing smiled bitterly. Seems like it. Lin Yun said proudly, from the moment he went against my brother, he was destined to die. Star Supremacy's expression was a little dazed. This is really unbelievable. What's unbelievable? Lin Feng walked over with a smile. Get ready, we'll continue our journey. Everyone's gaze slowly calmed down. However, from the occasional flicker in their eyes, it was clear that their hearts were not as calm as they appeared to be. Nono pursed its lip. I told you long ago that boss is very powerful. He's not afraid of that ice dragon of the southern sea at all. You just didn't believe me. Now you know how powerful boss is, right? As it spoke, it flapped its wings and flew to Lin Feng's shoulder. However, if boss is so powerful, I, Nono, am not too bad either. I can't beat an earth sage, but I, Nono, am not afraid of anyone below that. Its cultivation had already risen to mid-level supremacy, and its combat power had increased exponentially. When it was still a low-level supremacy, its speed was already comparable to a high-level supremacy. Now, its speed was comparable to the ice dragon of the southern sea, who was at the peak of supremacy. Just based on this point, it was already invincible among supremacies. No wonder it was so confident. Everyone calmed down. After a while, Lin Feng and Nono took the lead, and the rest followed behind. They slowly advanced deeper into the Earth-Sea cavern. Huang Wenbing, Lin Yun, Xiaoyao supremacy, Star supremacy, and Snowflake supremacy were undoubtedly lucky. With Lin Feng protecting them, as long as they did not awaken memories of the mid-level Earth Sage's holy souls of the mid-level Earth supremacy, they would be safe. Along the way, the walls were in ruins. They encountered many remnant souls. Most of them were at the peak of the Venerable Realm or the peak of the Venerable Realm. There were also some remnant souls that were at the initial stage of the Earth Saint Realm. However, Lin Feng didn't even use any of his law skills. With one punch after another, he easily killed them all. Lin Feng was not afraid of even a peak low-level Earth Sage, not to mention these crippled low-level Earth Sages' holy souls and even weaker supremacies. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. In these 3 days, everyone's gains were not small. Some of the supremacies with lower cultivation had advanced. Xiaoyao supremacy, star supremacy, snowflake supremacy, and the rest had also advanced greatly, and were one step closer to the peak of supremacy. Lin Yun and Huang Wenbing had also completely stabilized their cultivation as high-level supremacies, and were beginning to charge toward the peak of supremacy. After refining the pure energy of a low-level earth sage, everyone stood up excitedly. Xiaoyao, it seems like you're only one step away from the peak of supremacy, right? Star Supremacy said with a smile. Xiaoyao Supremacy laughed. Don't talk about me. You should be the same, right? The gains from this trip to the Earth-Sea Cavern had far exceeded their imagination. Apart from these supremacies with higher cultivation, most of the others had already advanced. Even Lin Feng and Nono were about to break through to high-level supremacy. Lin Feng smiled faintly. He had already expected such a result, so he was not surprised. With his strength, as long as he was careful, this Earth-Sea Cavern was equivalent to his back garden. He could come and go as he pleased. It was as if it was made for him. He even suspected that this was a gift specially prepared for him by the old ancestor Lin Hai, because he had foreseen what would happen later. Have you all finished refining? Lin Feng saw that everyone had stopped and he slowly stood up. Then let's continue forward. The Earth-Sea Cavern was too big, or rather, this small world was too big. It was even bigger than the 2 continents of the Wind Punishment Realm combined. They had advanced for 3 days, but they were still at the edge of the Earth-Sea Cavern. While killing the remnant souls, they continued to advance. In the process, everyone had leveled up one after another. Even Lin Feng had leveled up from mid-level Martial Saint to high-level Martial Saint. His combat prowess had increased by another knot. Now, even if he were to face a mid-level Earth Saint, he would still be able to put up a fight. On the 18th day of entering the Earth-Sea Cavern, Lin Feng and the others finally met living people from the outside world. No, it should be called demonic beasts. Seeing Lin Feng and the others, the leading demonic beast was shocked. Lin Feng, why aren't you dead? This was a demonic beast at the limit of supremacy. Behind it were 7 or 8 high-level supremacy demonic beasts. Each of them was covered in wounds and looked miserable. Obviously, they were not as lucky as Xiaoyao Supremacy and the others. With their strength, even surviving in the Earth-Sea Cavern was very difficult. Mother Zheng's subordinates? Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Not good, run. The demonic beast instantly noticed Lin Feng's path. Its expression changed, and it immediately turned around to flee. It was very decisive. However, it had only taken a few steps before it stopped. Then, it slowly turned into dust and disappeared between heaven and earth. Lin Feng's figure slowly appeared at the place where it disappeared. He said indifferently, "Since Mother Zhang isn't here, I'll collect some interest first." After a few punches, the demonic beasts were all killed. Not a single one was spared. The current Lin Feng was even more decisive. After dealing with Mother Zhang's subordinates, Lin Feng and the others continued to advance in the same direction. In the blink of an eye, another 7 days had passed. It had been 25 days since Lin Feng and the others entered the Earth-Sea Cavern. In these 25 days, the group's harvest was indescribable. In the whole group, except for a few Supremes, the rest of the Supremes had broken through to the peak of the Supremes. Huang Wenbing, Lin Yun, Carefree Supremacy, Star Supremacy, and Fluttering Snow Supremacy had reached the peak of the Supreme's limit. As they had not fully comprehended the laws, they could not step into the beginner Earth Saint level. However, the Yuan energy in their bodies had reached the limit. They could no longer advance. Lin Feng and Nono had also broken through to the peak of the Supreme's limit. However, they were still a step away from the peak. It's about time. We should go back. Lin Feng muttered. The Earth-Sea Cavern was only open for 30 days. If they did not return after the deadline, they would never be able to leave. Huang Wenbing nodded excitedly. Yes, it's time to go back. Everyone was in high spirit. They were very excited. Now, their cultivation had improved greatly. Some had even broken through 2 realms. It was difficult for them not to be excited. Their gazes converged on Lin Feng. All of this was because of this young man. If it was not for him, they could not even guarantee their survival. How could they talk about breaking through? All right, let's go back. Lin Feng nodded. He had achieved his goal. Although he was still a step away from the peak, he did not care about it. Just as Lin Feng made his decision, he suddenly frowned. Boss, what's wrong? Huang Wenbing asked. Lin Feng waved his hand, indicating that he should not speak. Then, he closed his eyes and pricked up his ears. After a while, his expression became serious. There's a situation. You guys go first. Since entering the Earth-Sea Cavern, it was the first time they saw Lin Feng reveal such an expression. They immediately became nervous. Brother, you're not coming with us? Lin Yun asked worriedly. You guys go first. I'll cover the rear. Otherwise, none of you will be able to leave. Lin Feng took a deep breath and said, Hurry up. The enemy will be here soon. Everyone looked at each other and finally made a rational choice. Go. Obviously, if they insisted on staying, not only would they not be of any help, but they would also be a burden to Lin Feng. Therefore, they only had one choice. Go. Boss, I'll stay and help you, Nono said. You go too. Lin Feng said in a low voice. The Earth-Sea Cavern is full of danger. You're the strongest. Only you can protect them. Hurry up, we're running out of time. Nono took a deep breath. With a flap of its wings, its body immediately changed and became extremely huge. Then it said, Boss, I'll send them back first. After breaking through to the supremacy level, Nono's speed became even faster. It was like a stream of light. Even a beginner Earth Saint could not compare to it. Not long after Nono left, the ground began to tremble violently. Rumble! Lin Feng flew up slowly and looked down. What entered his vision were countless saint souls, or the remnant souls of Supreme Being Peak Supreme Being. The densely packed saint souls and supremacy remnant souls covered the sky and the sun. There was no end to them. Like a swarm of locusts, they rushed madly in the same direction. Lin Feng happened to be in one of their paths. No wonder Lin Feng was so solemn. With so many saint souls and supremacy remnant souls, even a high-level Earth Saint would feel a little pressured. Lin Feng even suspected that all the saint souls and supremacy remnant souls in the middle of the Earth-Sea Cavern had come over. Even if their strength was less than 1/10 of what it was when they were alive, when there were so many of them, it was still extremely terrifying. Even if they stood still and let Lin Feng kill them, Lin Feng would probably not be able to kill all of them. Looking at the endless saint souls and supremacy remnant souls rushing toward him, Lin Feng got into position. When the saint souls and supremacy remnant souls at the front were only 100 feet away from him, he threw out a punch. Earth Wrath! Rumble! The punch blasted out, and the saint souls and supremacy remnant souls within a few hundred feet in front of him turned into ashes. Lin Feng originally thought that all the saint souls and supremacy remnant souls around him would attack him. However, when he destroyed the saint souls and supremacy remnant souls in front of him and created a gap in the whole large group, he found that his attack did not anger the saint souls and supremacy remnant souls at all. They continued to move forward. The saint souls and supremacy remnant souls on both sides of the gap rushed madly in the same direction. At this point, Lin Feng finally reacted. Their target is not me? He flew up high and took a closer look. Sure enough, all the saint souls and supremacy remnant souls did not care about him at all. Even if he killed a group of saint souls and supremacy remnant souls, the rest of the saint souls and supremacy remnant souls did not linger. This scene immediately aroused Lin Feng's curiosity. What exactly was it that made these incomparable saint souls and supremacy remnant souls ignore him, a living person? Could it be that there is some treasure inside that is attracting them? Lin Feng did not know if his guess was right or not, but it was undeniable that this was not a small possibility. Thinking of this, he pondered for a moment and then flew toward the direction of the group of monsters in the sky. With my strength, as long as I am careful, there should not be any danger. In that case, I might as well go and take a look. I hope it won't disappoint me. P.S. Notification, resume update. My injuries have healed, and I can start now. First update, the second update will come later. In addition, I have skipped most of the plot in the Earthsea Cave abode, and skipped directly to the most critical part. After that, the plot in the Wind Punishment Plane will also end at the fastest speed, and the plot of the Secret Land of Immortality will begin. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.